for closed session, which we can then discuss in closed session. But what I can tell you is that the rooms, and I'm referring here to Dr. Jones to chime in as a middle school consultant, refer to you to make a statement about the rooms and the narrowness of the rooms and what we have discussed. By the way, I've met, full disclosure, I've met this morning and had coffee and breakfast with Dr. Jones. I don't want anybody to see if we have been seen at Starbucks. But she was at so Dr. Jones and I, we had a conversation about the budget, and we had discussion about it. And Dr. Jones, why don't you just chime in on that matter?
Well, I don't mean to defer, but I have to, because this is something that was at the administrative team level.
Yeah. In
terms of how classrooms were presented. So I'm going to defer to the administrative team.
Okay, but I wanted to give you the first shot. Biggie. Scott, Casey, who wants to take these questions about how the setup is for the rooms? Are they generous? Could we, if hypothetically speaking, if we only were to get one room for what reason soever, could that be a rich program also in one room?
That's a very difficult to answer question.
We discussed that this morning.
Because there is no final offer yet. I mean, there is a final offer, but we have asked for an alternative agreement, like the board decided to do, and we haven't received that alternative agreement. So I could not tell you if we stay with the room that was offered in the final offer, or if there was a change. There is a board member assigned to the Prop 39 process, and that board member might be able to give
so, but
more
before have the board member agree, because we have to have this discussion about the richness of it. You said something about the one room this morning. Can you just say just one room? Is that possible?
I don't think he's comfortable talking about it, Frank. He gave him the opportunity to speak with him.
Okay, then, thank you.
Yeah,
then I'm just misreading it.
Let's move forward.
Let's move forward. Okay, next question.
Okay. I have an observation that your assumption for 2 years of depletion of the reserves is extremely tenuous. And so the one thing I would like to add to this process, item number 23, is to have a town hall meeting. I'm happy to attend to a town hall meeting at a time that is maximal for the number of parents that can be present, and to literally take a vote at the end of what parents feel about the budget. They should understand it. They can ask as many questions as they want about the budget, and there should be a presentation made or questions made ahead of time around what are the concerns that parents have, whether they are the silent majority or the voiceful few. I, for one, as somebody who has no affiliation with the school, would like to hear the parents. And great attendance this evening tonight, but I don't think the open comments provides a forum for that type of exchange. I really would like to understand the fire in the belly of the parents of this school, because there is no money coming in. The ED will not commit to raising more money.
You don't know that.
Sorry?
You don't know that.
Well,
you're just making the assumption, but
we're not provisioning to put it in.
Guys, we got to stick to the point. I mean, it's almost into the school year, and this budget has to pass in the next 3 weeks. We're not going to have a town hall meeting by the end of the school year. It's not going to be possible to organize.
Why not?
Why not?
You can organize it.
It can be organized.
Here's my suggestion. If we get Lucy, can I just say something to that effect? I said, if we get some more directions, we can do a next level budget. We can then come with that next level budget if the community wants to chime in and present, and then Ryan could be there and literally walk through the mechanisms. I for one, we could, if that is organizationally feasible, why not?
I mean, we do have finance committee meetings at least once a month, and nobody shows up. So it's, go ahead.
All right, so just to reset, this is for the 2019 budget, the proposed.
Was it Alex, were you done with your question?
Yes.
Oh, you were.
So this is where our topic is the 2019, proposed 2019-2020 budget, and you've given us two models, one with an ED, one without an ED, just so everyone's.
I'm just talking about the one that's with more.
I got it. So then Alex proceeded to go down this list of what we agree, what we disagree. I just wanna make sure I understand what's going on. So, let me just work backwards.
Sure.
As, like, you guys know me, I love committees and all about committees. I think town halls are great, but I think we have representatives from the parents here. I think we have our finance committee meetings, which are open to the public. I think we have our administrative leadership team. I don't know if you guys are talking about going out and getting a survey and getting the feel on where we need to devote more funding to. I would say that if time constraints, if we don't know that now, then we're not really managing the school. So I think we have enough representation here from all the stakeholders to make a decision on the budget, that we don't need to go to a group. That's my 2 cents, you guys can disagree. Getting back to the topic at hand, a few things that I care about, that was important to me is obviously the teacher salary. Just so I'm clear, my original request to the finance committee was to make sure that teacher salary, base salaries lined up with local school districts in the area. I don't have an overwhelming confidence in the statement here that says that we achieved that. What I do recognize is you're giving them a 6% increase that will bring them in line with the latest LAUSD benchmarks. But I think you said it here, what is that?
I didn't write it.
I'm sorry, but in this document.
Yeah, I'm saying yes on the raise.
You're saying yes on the raise,
Yes on
number
the
4.
raise, yes.
Teacher with a BA, did I see that? Teacher with a BA, current starting salary is $49,720.
Yep.
LAUSD is $50,000, and
It's close.
it's close. And then you say something, or it says something where the 6% for certificated staff budget deficit would be $100,000 lower. So that is with the increase that we're projecting, that we'd still not be at par with LAUSD.
We are at par. We are on par. There is an average table there. We're very close to the average, and I let staff talk about it.
I think you're missing that page, right?
It's not. It wasn't.
Casey, do you want to give us
Do
an
you
update on
guys
that?
have that page, the one that shows the average in the area?
Yeah, I can do that.
In our admin.
But I mean, just verbally, like, is it, so we are gonna be a little less than LAUSD, is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, we'll still be a little bit less than LAUSD, but much closer than, well, a lot less. We would get to where LAUSD is currently, because
Before the increase?
Before the increase.
Correct.
Sorry, who's that?
But they will have an additional 6% increase from the average requested. So we'll still be 6%, a little bit more, less than LAUSD.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, what's the phone?
It's okay. Let's move on with the budget, please.
Oh, because you're laughing.
No, we're going to keep that joke.
Okay.
Honestly, I'd rather not.
No.
I have no other
Give me.
Another question?
You can't talk to me yet.
So I'll follow up next.
You're violating the very thing that you said you didn't want to do. Nope. Alex doesn't want to do that, so I'm gonna do it myself.
Okay. So, is your question?
So the,
I'm done.
You're done.
I'm done.
obviously, you know, the head count is a major driver of our revenue. And so, what was the head count that we had after the last month? Did we do what was the number we came up with at the, when we picked when we did the numbers?
Students.
Count?
435 students is the budget, the assumption for this budget.
Right, when we did the lottery, what was the number of kids that we sent out?
Some around 450. Which students?
When we did the lottery, we sent out saying to the parents that said, hey, we're accepting your
Yes,
you were
if
chosen.
everybody accepts, it would be around 450.
450. Okay, but in this assumption, we're down to 435.
435.
Okay. And that's because, why is that?
Because we are building the budget on 25 as a maximum for a classroom. As of right now, we have invited in lower grades more students. We could technically get those students. It's not very likely. That's why we are assuming lower student numbers to have the budget on a conservative level.
And you can't count on students to show up just because they got into our school. Families put feelers out there, they get accepted into multiple schools, and they make a decision. So it's safe to say there'll be about 15% of students that were accepted in the lottery who will not show up.
And who actually enrolled and will not show up. There's also always a good number of students, of our existing students, that just don't come back the following school year and don't let us know beforehand. So we just wanted to make this budget very conservative so that we don't get in the position of always running behind a number that we're not able to.
So really quick, by each class grade, how many kids do we have that backup position?
I put that in the report for the administrative leadership team. So it depends. We have a wait list for kindergarten, or TKK first and second grade. We have 0 wait list for third, fourth, fifth, and sixth grade. So that means those classes that are mostly the under-enrolled classes, that they don't have wait lists. So currently, fourth and fifth grade don't look like they will be fully enrolled at 25 students, because there's also nobody on the wait list.
No, okay. But we do have a plan in place, from here until school starts to try to, is someone in charge of calling parents or apply to the school, to try to fill those positions, or?
We have invited everybody who has applied to the school. There is just nobody out there anymore on the wait list that we could call. We need to make sure that actually all the students that we have right now are really returning, because we don't know about that either. But we're trying with certain marketing events and marketing activities to create more interest around the school, yes. But as of right now, there's 0 on the wait list in the upper grades.
In the upper grades, okay. We have a campaign that's starting or started.
Well, we have the ad in the Argonaut, which was the special or on Ion Education, and we have another ad in the Argonaut for the summer guide, and we will also do the best of the website again, the voting, and then we will visit some neighborhood council events in the next couple of weeks. But Frau Akbaba will say more about that in your marketing update. That's later on the agenda.
Okay, all right, thank you. And Frank, the other concern is about the fundraising.
Yes,
And
yes,
even,
sir.
Even though we're projected to have, in the worst case scenario, 35 more kids, we're dropping the fundraising by 100.
Yes, I think I don't necessarily agree with that number myself,
Yeah.
but the rationale behind it was that due to the, and I'm paraphrasing here, and maybe staff should answer that a little better, but I'm paraphrasing because of the changing environment, that we can't do certain fundraising events on, traditionally we have done, or the fundraising committee has done. That
For example.
The Goethe cafes cannot take place as they have been for the past few years. We have the movie nights that can no longer take place the way they have been.
The pajama parties.
Pajama parties.
Technically, even the Jogathon is a fundraising event on campus. It might not be possible.
Might not, or is it official? Did they tell you we're no longer able to have
No,
those?
but they made comments that they will not agree to requests for space if it involves fundraising. So since we haven't put in that request, because you only do that in the beginning of the school year when you have the date, I can't say if they would agree to it or if they wouldn't, but it was very clearly articulated that there will be no support in any way for events that are considered fundraising events.
On campus.
On campus.
Off campus, we can do as much.
Off campus, we can do whatever we want, however, we have to pay higher, rent for facilities.
Yeah.
It sounds like we need to get creative.
So I think your comment is spot on, Lucio.
I mean, is if you look at that 100,000 drop, and then you bring another 10 kids in, you know, and get the
Should go
reduction
up.
up to, that's $200,000.
Yeah, and I believe that I personally, as I said in my email to you, I believe that the fundraising at an ED role could be financed through additional fundraising, the grant, and you know, what was the other one I said, and there were 3 items, and
Yeah, the last one was regarding the grant, so,
Yeah.
the middle school grant that they had, how much per child?
I can answer this, but I think we're only expecting 20.
It's 1,300.
1,300 per child, right? And we're
I thought it was
expecting
more, maybe Chris, do you know what the number is?
For the grant?
Yes. per child.
2,500 per child.
2,500 per child.
So there's another times 20, you know, so there's another 50,000 out there, and again, which was not contemplated in the budget. So these were the 3 items. So just, as I said, fundraising lower, the grant, and you know, there's also like the arbitrary number we just came up with that.
Okay, all right.
Although in the conversation with Dr. Jones, he said that 10% for the size of the school, being an operational guy, he said that the drawdown should more be, the reserve should more be 15 to 18% was his recommendation. We assume a 10%. $4 million budget, $400,000 reserve, and Dr. Jones recommended that actually should be a little higher.
Okay.
Yeah?
I'll yield to Margie. Michael?
Yeah, so going back to the assumptions on enrollment. We're projecting 413 for the elementary PK through 5.
415.
415. And you're saying that's realistic because with the 454 that we had at the time of the lottery, we're going to have drop off of people that actually show up on August.
We might have
Might
drop off.
have.
We might have drop off. And the intent to enroll forms that we had for Prop 39 were on the basis of our current students. And in the lower grades in kindergarten, we have 28 students per classroom. In first grade, we have a lot of kids per classroom. So the budget, we always build on 25, so there is a buffer in there. So if they all come back, we would be higher than the 415, but the 415 is on the basis of 25 per classroom, and in the upper grades where we just don't have the students, assuming all would come back, I think we end up with 23 per classroom, and that gets us to the 415 in the budget. Now, if all of our students came back, we would be higher than that. That's this enrollment update that is in the in your or in our report to you. So again, the 415 for the elementary school is very conservative. That might be 10 higher, that might be 5 higher, but we just wanted to be conservative so that the budget is realistic.
So if there's 20 projected for the 6th grade, I assume that, are you going to do 2 classes of 10 or are you going to do 1 class of 20?
We haven't decided that yet. We are following right now the board decision, which says that we would have 2 classrooms, and we're looking to hire 2 teachers, 1 for science and math, and 1 for English language arts and social studies, since that was the board decision from the last board meeting.
And so, if the board were to say, take one of those classrooms and devote it to the TK-5, would that then, is there any class that you could make, given how many people are on the wait list, from any of the lower grades?
An additional class,
Yes.
you mean?
Yeah.
There's a wait list of 25 for kindergarten, but that I would be very skeptical because kindergarten is the grade level where you have the most drop-offs. There is a very healthy wait list for first grade with 20 students, and we have currently 28 per class. So if we reduce those to 25, that would give you 6 extra students, so that would make the 26. However, that would mean that all of them need to show up, which you never have. So most likely, if you did that, you would have to assume that all the classes would be under-enrolled, under 25, and you would need 2 extra teachers, because for an additional class, you need an English and a German teacher, which would create cost again. So we would have to calculate how many students we would actually get extra and what the cost would be for those 2 extra teachers.
And can I just add that those 2 extra positions would be part-time positions, because there's not another class to partner them with. We don't have any other part-time position in the elementary school to make it a full-time position.
So realistically, if the board did that, would it be better to do that sooner or later? The decision on 1 classroom or 2 classrooms? Sooner.
Yeah.
So,
Can I
yes,
add
yes.
something to that? Since we are looking at candidates who have applied for 6th grade, most of them have multiple subject credentials, so not just math and science or English and social studies. So they would be actually able to do all subject self-contained classrooms, and not necessarily we would need 2 teachers for the 6th grade. However, since the board made the decision with the 2 classrooms, what was based on the fact that in the material revision, it was 2 classrooms and the board wanted to adhere to the material revision. So that would be clearly a board decision to go against what last time was put up on a high priority to adhere to the material revision.
and since the day that we approved the 2 classroom, 2 teacher, has the enrollment for the 6th grade gone up, or has it stayed the same?
It has, from our own students, we don't know. We
Right.
still have the 14 that said that they would come back. At the last board, I think we had 4 or 5 external applications and enrollments. Right now we have 6. However, again, we had one parent today come in and say, oh, I'm enrolling in 6th grade, I'm still considering your school, but I'm still enrolling. So that's something that is really hard to say, because it's the first year, and that parent expressed very clearly, well, we don't know what we'll get here, and we're considering. So it could be that from those 6, none show up, could be that all 6 show up, we wouldn't know.
And, Mr. President, I'd like to ask that the site expansion committee address this issue of 2 classes versus 1 class for the 6th grade at their next meeting. By the way, I'm not asking you directly because I'm supposed to. It's here.
So you're saying that we should consider?
Well, I'm asking, yeah, I'm saying that based upon the discussion we just had, I think, the site expansion committee should, at its next meeting, address this issue,
What are
whether or
your
not we stick with.
We're thinking Thursday maybe.
Okay, because we have a finance committee meeting on Wednesday.
Yeah, I think we can still put plan. I think that I necessarily, even if I just need some directions, we can just refine it a little bit better and then bring it forward to the board again for site committee, school site committee input. And then with Ryan being present, then we can just make adjustments on the fly and just can then move towards adoption.
Yeah, so my theory is that if you added a new first grade, that obviously is the additional cost of the teacher, but you're taking away the cost of the sixth grade teacher, and I know those aren't equal, but would there be the potential for a revenue increase at taking 23 to 26 kids in a new first grade, given that you have to hire a part-time teacher versus a full-time teacher for the sixth grade?
I think personally that you need to look, there's no way that we can break even, no way.
No, I understand.
You understand, right?
Yeah.
But I think you need to look at the middle school product also as a product which is rich, so that it attracts, it just can't be, if you're skinning it too, with the two teachers, if you're skinning it down too much, you're losing the appeal. The appeal is, when you have a middle school program, you only have 20 students and you have 10, it is really kind of like a private school setting for these kids, right? Because of the lower classroom size. It's very appealing to the first grade parents to, for the risk takers, for the adopters of that thing to come to it, because they're making sure that the kids are getting, especially at the first year, the first kids, that they're getting the attention they wouldn't normally get in any other school where there are 35 or 40 kids sitting in the middle school, right? So that's a key selling argument. So that's why I said it is really beneficial. That's my opinion, is go all in on the structure and take the hit on the reserves, but just make adjustments for additional revenue here and there and be a little bit more aggressive on the revenue.
Word of mouth is gonna go a long way going forward for the next class, the next year.
Yeah, I think what needs to be done is, I think ultimately what needs to, because I arbitrarily have given the admin team this number of $600,000, right? The actual number, as I told you, is 1,200, as you straight, 1.2 million, right? And I said use 350 in the first year just to start the planning process. You could use 500,000 in the first year, right? And then all of a sudden you get so much momentum and you get so much energy around the middle school, and then their enrollment kicks really up the following year, right? And then you invest everything, you go hard on the investment, and then you start and you reward the risk takers, and then build the program up, and you have all the infrastructure there, and then you just start scaling it from there.
Okay, Michael, is that it?
No, sorry. I want to talk about the fundraising as well. So, if the executive director is not going to have a target that they're supposed to raise, then I would be supportive of having a development associate that had a goal in addition to the goal that's in this budget. So that's just my opinion, yeah. But the alternative I would also support would be that the executive director had a fundraising goal in addition to this 375.
Yeah, noted.
Okay. And then the last point is with regard to, and this goes back to the enrollment. Scott said a 15% drop off. I don't think that 412 is, or 415 is 15% of 454. Yes, I'm doing that. So what is the projection that we are, the percentage that we're saying? Is it truly 454 divided by 415 as the drop off, or, because yeah, when I calculated 15% of 454, it was 68 kids. So, and I know that's not what I do. Am I wrong?
It's 389. Right. It's
Yeah.
455 times 85 is the
Yes,
number.
right.
386, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I just want to know.
So right now,
Yeah.
with the enrolled students plus the returning students that we had given the return forms, we would be at 429 students.
Okay.
So not 415, but 429 students. We even would be higher by 8 which gets us to 437 if all that have accepted right now their spots also enrolled. So the 415, again, that number is just coming from when we used to do the budget, we put in round numbers per classroom, which means we put in 25 students per classroom. 25 times next year, and I'm taking out the 6th grade because we don't have 25 per classroom, so we have 17 classrooms next year. That would get us to 425 students. Now in the upper grades, we don't have 25 in each classroom right now. That's why we said, for the budget purpose, we're going in the upper grade levels with the actual numbers of students, which is 23. So that's why we get down to 415 students. So that is the number that we calculated with. What is not in that calculation is that in some of the lower grades, we have actually more than 25 students. We have 28. So that's why you would get higher, and the 415 is really a low assumption for the budget. Because in last years, we have made higher assumptions for students, and we've always had to adjust or were under-enrolled throughout the school year. And we wanted to make sure that we're not under-enrolled, that we actually get more revenue than we expect, so that we have
There were two budget revisions last year. The original budget was, I think, we made at 425. We had that
No, it
that was last year.
last year, and then it was down to 400.
390.
400, yeah,
395.
yeah.
400 then, and then
went back up to-
it went up and then it went down again.
No, it went up, based in August.
In August, based on
Yeah.
But we never
Nagosi's,
had
yeah,
412
Nagosi's
the whole
recommendation.
school year.
Yes.
So therefore, we try to now do, for the classes that have more than 25, we still did 25, and for those that have lower than 25, we use the actual numbers. So you basically have buffers in both directions. One realistic number, not the 25, and the other number is lower than what we actually have.
Okay, and so really what we're talking about is our current, enrollment of 401 versus next year, we're estimating 450.
No, we're 415 for
Yeah.
elementary,
Yes.
yes,
Okay,
correct.
so we are projecting an increase in enrollment for next
Yes.
year of a
Correct.
conservative increase,
Yes,
which we would love it if it got to 429,
correct.
and that would change the
But
world.
that made tremendous,
Tremendously. Right. So then, moving on to, the teacher salaries, which number is that? Sorry.
That's number 4.
4, okay. So, the new GIS starting salary that's discussed in these budget assumptions is 49,720. Is there a reason why it's not the 5368?
I went off the current step and column system and added the 6%
Right,
to
to
each
each
of
step,
the steps and columns, and that's what the number that came out.
Right, okay, good. And are we also awarding the retention bonuses?
retention bonuses
That
was.
has not been discussed.
Retention
by
bonus
the
has not been,
board.
was always a one-time, the board adopted
Mm-hmm.
for returners, I think adopted at the end of the school year, based on whatever we have, right, and it's gonna be, but it's gonna hit the budget then in that year, right, because the actual number is, well, you draw down from the reserves, right?
Right.
So you have to make a decision at that point, when you're gonna put it in or not.
Right, so we
It's
could.
not in this budget.
It's not in this budget, right?
Yeah, so but if we put it in this budget, it would mean that in June of 2020, we would be paying those bonuses?
No, we would be paying in August of this upcoming school year, we would be paying the bonus for those teachers who come back. If you make it a retention bonus, you always pay it in the beginning of the
Beginning of the
school
school
year that follows the
Right, but
Or
what you're
that
saying
is-
is,
so-
this would be the last time.
So,
No, we
I
have-
don't know,
no,
I'm
no,
just
no,
saying,
we
whatever
we already
you
paid it.
decide, you,
No, I know.
correct, we paid it in August
Yeah.
for last year, for
Yeah.
those teachers that came back for this school year. And if you decided to do this again, we would pay the retention bonus in August when they come back, actually show up and teach. For this school year, so you pay in the 19-20 school year for the 18-19 school year. As of right now, there is no assumption made that this bonus would be paid, so if you decided to pay a retention bonus, it would go on top of the budget.
And about how much would that be in the current?
Last year it was about 50,000, but it
But that
would
was
be a little
reduced.
high, that was a little reduced, and it would be higher this year because some teachers would now be here for 3 years instead of 2 years, and it was a retention bonus that was paid per year of tenure, with a limit at the number 3 year.
And so
3 years was the
conservatively, like
maximum.
another 15,000?
I would, no, I think that's too high.
high.
I would say anywhere between 5,000 and 8,000 on top of it.
Okay, so
$5,000
that's
and $8,000.
On
on
top of the 50,000.
50,000.
Because of
But
the
the
teachers.
number-
58,000,
It would
approximately.
be 58 to
58 to
60,000
60,000.
instead
Oh,
of
okay.
50,000.
Right.
So they would get a
Assume
6% pay increase,
They would, if
plus
that.
they would get the,
correct,
The
the
retention
retention
bonus,
bonus.
which would get them closer to that
would
LEUSD.
actually get them, because we calculated the 6% on the step and column, it's around $4,800 or $4,500. So each teacher with the 6% gets about $4,500 raise.
Right.
And if you then pay the, retention bonus on top of it, then you get to the, actual, or very close to the LAUSD.
So the bonuses have been factored in?
No.
No,
No,
So how much would be the overall?
that's what
Say
we're saying,
70,000.
50 to 60,000
on top of
addition
what
to
we
what
have
we
in the
have
budget
in the
now.
budget.
Well,
And as we had the guideline of 350,000 negative, we did not put the retention bonus in. We decided for 2 years now to award the retention bonus, so that, but it was always an award for 1 year, not a
And so
recurring.
what are you looking for as far as a decision today, right?
I just wanted to get some directions where we're gonna go with that. It doesn't need to be, I think we can work, even when the fundraising committee meets and there's, can further input. But give me along those lines, whether there is like, are we
Are we
going?
voting on the?
We're not voting on
6%
anything.
today?
No.
We're not voting on anything?
We're not
Sorry.
voting on anything. I'd like to say, hold on 1 second. I'd like to get some consensus, because it's critical that we issue contracts for the teachers at least on the 6%.
Yeah.
I highly recommend that the board issues the recommendation, just table that retention bonus. We can model that in the.
You can't table it, there's a contractual agreement.
No.
No, it's in the contract.
You can't table it,
No, no, no,
it's a
no.
mechanism that will kick in.
No,
We would
the-
have to put it in the
It's
new
in the
contract.
contract, in the new contract, that if
You're right.
returned by, with the August 31st payroll, the retention bonus is paid out. So
I
it has
would-
to be in the contract.
Okay, I would say my recommendation at this stage is,
By the way, I'm not done with my comment.
okay, but.
No, that's okay.
But
I
my
just wanna make sure-
recommendation
No,
is.
go back to you,
Yeah,
go
yeah.
back to you, please.
Yeah.
My recommendation is to at least adopt,
Well, we
not
gotta
at
get
least,
out of
but
here.
adopt the
I understand
adopt the
Well,
6%
we
raise
took 2 items
today.
out.
Today, 6% raise. I think it's a given, must do it.
So my last issue is the IA. So, you said that if we asked the teachers, they would say they want an IA in each grade. So that's, you're saying an additional 5, and that the cost of those IAs is 68,000, okay. So as I understand it, you've already budgeted for the 6% raise, so that's in.
The 6%, actually, there's a 6% budgeted for teachers and for classified.
Classified, right.
Because that is something, and Scott would be the better person to talk about it, because he's in the weekly meeting with them. So, based on what he tells us, we found that it would be important to also put the 6% raise for them in the budget.
Got it. Okay, so so right now we're looking at 68,000 for the IAs, extra IAs, and between 58 and 60,000 for the retention
Retention
bonus.
bonus, but that would be in addition to the budget that you have in front of you.
Okay, got it. Okay.
So I think, at least, yes, we're gonna do another round, but I would highly encourage you to just settle on the 6% for right now. Pete?
No,
Pete, go ahead, you're up.
Sorry guys, I really have a problem with this. I mean,
We're not
mentioned
gonna address it right now. Let's-
that a board member that has missed more than 3 board meetings cannot be a.
Alex, we're not talking about that right now. Pete, you
Alex,
got anything
the
to
proper
add?
thing is for you to make a point of order and for us to discuss that and then vote on whether or not we want to do it. That's the proper procedure. So you're just saying I'd like to make a point of order that I don't agree that.
I'd like to make a point of order, and I brought this up at a governance meeting 2 months ago or 3 months ago with Lucio, that our bylaws clearly state, section 3.05E, that a board member that has missed more than 3 board meetings, consecutive board meetings, is not eligible to be on this board. It really I hate to be in this setting in front of a camera having to say this, but this is just not good compliance. So the question I ask is, why now, at the end of the school year, is somebody calling in at 4:30 in the morning is it just to swing a vote? If that's what it is, let's just be blatant with it and say, I'm only here to be able to get a certain item
Alex,
through the vote.
he's been on the board for a
Okay,
while
hold
now.
on.
He has missed
Lucio,
more than
he's
3
making a point of
consecutive
order.
meetings.
So the proper procedure now is for us, is to him to make a motion to ask that we, I guess.
I don't know what you would do, cause he's a board member.
Yeah, so he's a board member, but your point of order is appropriate,
Yeah.
but we have to
So if
dispense it.
my question is, if the board president and the board secretary do not uphold the bylaws of this organization, who should?
Well, if we can just go back, so.
Again, Alex, we entertained your point of order, now we have to dispose of it or address it and act upon it, okay?
I think it's yours to,
You either
as a
say
board
it's,
member
you
and-
either say it's, you
Overruled.
you overrule his point of order, or you accept his point of order.
I overruled his point of order.
Alex, would you like to ask for a vote of the Board of Trustees at this point? Given that the president has said, has overruled your point of order?
Yes, I do. I'd like people to go on the record
Yeah.
with voting on the subject.
So now you call for a vote of the board, members of the board, with regard to Alex's request that Pete not participate in board meetings.
No discussion.
For discussion, I guess.
Yeah, you
Is that
can
the
discuss.
motion?
What's that? Well,
I'm sorry. Robert?
So, we're getting into the weeds of Robert's rules here. If to be blunt, if you want to exclude him from discussions at this board meeting, that's fine. You can't take any formal action to remove anybody at this meeting
Right.
tonight, because that wasn't on the agenda.
right, yes, right.
So we're discussing whether he could participate in this board meeting.
Is that what the
Yes.
motion and the point of order is?
I have a comment.
Yeah, hold on a second. Yeah, that is what we're not, yes. and
We're
thank
not
you.
removing him.
We're not removing him because it's not agendized.
Right.
But if Alex has made a point of order, the
No, I got
president
it.
has
I got the
overruled,
concept.
and now Alex has asked for us to vote on
Right.
Right.
Pete can vote on it too.
that. Yes, Pete can vote on it too, yeah.
So-
Yeah.
Let's
Can he vote on it too?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, good.
He's part of this board.
Yeah, he's part of the board.
Okay.
Alright, so let's take a vote. Mike?
Martin?
Did you wanna say, ask?
I just wanted to say that he was in the meeting last time. The board took no action to remove him prior to now. You can't,
We're not removing.
okay, so.
And just one more point of clarification. I don't think in the bylaws it says to be a board member, you have to be attending every meeting in person. I think what it says is that the board can declare a seat vacant if a board member has not attended, I think it's 3 consecutive meetings or any one meeting in a 90-day span. But technically, since his address has been listed on the agenda, I mean, there's no clarification in your bylaws of what it means to attend a meeting, but since he has the right to vote, since he's calling in and his address was listed on the agenda, and assuming he has complied with all the other Brown Act requirements, he still would have a vote on this board at the meeting tonight. So that's something to consider too.
All right, so let's take a vote, whether, all those in favor of, Pete continuing the discussion, say aye.
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 Pete?
Pete? Pete, can you hear us?
Let's see.
Pete, are you still there, Pete?
Is that your, yeah.
You need majority, so.
Pete?
We can text him if you like.
Hello, Pete? Yeah, go ahead, sorry about that. Yeah, so, did you hear the motion?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so there was a point of order that Alex moved, the president overruled him, and so Alex has asked for a vote on that point of order. The request is for you to be allowed to continue to participate in this meeting. And so the board president called for a vote on that item.
Right, so I believe I'm voting that I can participate.
Yes, 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 okay.
Yeah, so I agree to that, yeah.
Okay, all right, so that's a vote of 4-3, if I got it right. Okay. So moving on.
So
So
it's
did
his,
you
it's his turn to ask questions about the
Can
budget.
we get back to the issue of the budget though?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, you're up.
So I think there's a couple of, so I have no issue with drawing down the reserves. I believe, that is the point of having the reserves, of expanding the middle school or creating middle school. I think that's perfectly legitimate. I think a couple of points I want to make is one, in this time of expansion, making things comfortable for our staff. I think this is not the time for that. Secondly, in many school districts, elementary schools go to 6th grade, and so the view of the expanded roles and responsibilities by adding 20 students as being that larger step, I think is not as large a step as we might think. And I think the budgeting should take that into account, that really 20 students do not require the view that we're adding an entire middle school students. So I think we need to take into account that the margin of step is pretty small, and to keep at this point a minimal addition of staff costs, excluding teachers, of course. I think other staff should take into account that this is a growing year, and compensation should not be increased simply because there is in name a middle school being created. I think part of the adventure here is building something up that requires a little bit of extra effort, and not necessarily a substantial reward. Moreover, I think we have an agency problem in that if you have staff leadership advocating for their own salaries, not for an executive director, which I believe is especially needed at this point, I think is not an optimal way to view how a budget should be developed. So, a couple comments on keeping the budget tight. Feel harder at the beginning, and then we worry about the rewards for those things later on once there's some progress in a couple of years. Thanks.
Thank you, Pete. You sure got something to say, so we'll do one quick round.
No, quick round. I mean, I'm just made my presentation.
No, but Alex is before me, so.
Alex, you know, before. It's in regards to the budget.
What I'm hearing is that there is not going to be any effort or viable effort to increase the revenues of the organization. I understand that because of the middle school we have to increase our cost, But when we don't try to offset that with increasing the revenue, that makes it very difficult for me to endorse a budget. It's just not good financial practice to neither expect an incoming potential executive director or a consultant or a full-time employee to generate revenue.
Right.
Is just, I find it exceptionally difficult to endorse such a plan. Hence, I'm requesting for a town hall meeting to see if there's going to be a coalition of the willing to try to see if they can get between now and July 20 students to enroll in any of the grades that we have. We have enough seats to be able to get 20 more students into the school. We need an impetus for increasing revenue. I can't, as much as I want to give teachers 6% pay increase, I can't risk the viability of this school.
Understood. Would you be amendable if the executive director or this person is getting an offsetting if the fundraising were to be increased from 375 by let's say 450 to pay for to offset something like that?
No, because I think that a primary role of an executive director of a school is to bring in funds.
Well,
that's the job of any CEO, is to ensure the revenue of the organization.
I have suggested in my comment to you that potentially an executive director contract could be structured with performance pay. I'm not sure whether this is feasible, but everybody who's working, this is not.
No,
I don't think you need to answer him, just accept the comments and.
I accept the comment, okay.
I do have a quick question. So, Alex, you're for or against the development position?
I am for a public town hall where parents can make informed decisions about the direction of the school in the following 12 months, that they can ask their probing questions.
Right, but that's not what I'm asking.
Okay.
I'm asking, are you for or against the development associate?
Well, it's a conditional, right? So if the ED is being given the task of bringing revenues, then I wouldn't be in favor of the development person. If I have to choose between an ED and a development person, right now I pick the development person because I think that our 3 leaders are doing a fabulous job running the school in the way that they're running it. Would they do better by having an ED? Sure, but hopefully. But they're doing it. So right now I'm looking at a revenue shortfall for this organization.
Yazir?
Okay, so I just want to go back to the original discussion, which is, I guess, Frank, you're asking for input.
Yes, please.
I would like to point out something that Pete said as far as, and I love the way you put it as far as, we need to kind of get together and all hunker down and say that this is a time of expansion and we shouldn't be, I love that idea, but I will say that there's been a lot of morale problems, there's been a lot of structural problems in the organization, and the teachers have been in the forefront of it. And I think it's crucial, especially now in the current environment, that they are compensated equitably in this organization, regardless of if we're opening a middle school or not. And yes, it is a new chapter in Goethe, but I think we need to bring everyone along to this new chapter. And if we have the reserves for it, I think that is what we should do. The input that I think Frank is seeking, I think, Frank, you have it.
Yes.
I was trying to pull up your actual projections for 2, 4, 6 years.
I don't have that.
I know, I
like this.
I think you emailed it, or someone emailed it to me.
I don't.
But anyway, it's still very, I feel like it's missing some things, like how many students we expect in enrollment, how much space we're gonna have here. We're gonna have this conversation in a few minutes about the middle school and our relationship and our impact here. How on earth, if you tell me that we're gonna get 300 more kids, where they're gonna go without another space, and that's your projection, I cannot fathom. So I'd like some more some work to be done in those projections as far as what the expectations are for enrollment. I think to Lucio's point, I think this year we started out with 390, and then we ended at 403. I think 2 weeks after school started. I thought it was impossible, but you proved me wrong. We actually have someone now in marketing who's actually volunteering their time to do it. Yes, we don't have someone in a permanent position to do it, but I think if there's some legwork there, we'll be in a much better position. I think the fundraising, and I think that's a job description conversation. I think that's personnel that we can take, not in an open meeting, but in a closed session. But ultimately, Frank, I think you've gotten feedback from this group. I would really like to see a recommendation from the finance committee on 3 models, and just a model that says ED and no ED is not a model.
No. I get it.
No.
I get it. That's why I just proposed one. We discussed one. I think that's just one person, one salary, one cost. So
but I have to see it with projections going 2 years, 4 years, and then I want the finance committee, if people come to the meetings, they should make public comment, they should talk to their parent reps.
Absolutely.
They should talk to Frank, let them know where they think the money should go.
Only in the finance committee meeting, not
in the board meeting. The board is not, we should just enact the recommendation or not.
Yes.
So please.
I just wanted to, because we were far, and I thank you for the comment, we were far away from issuing a recommendation. I'm happy to issue a recommendation with the input I have received now. I think Lucio, everybody has heard. I think we're meeting on Wednesday. We're going to refine it, and we're going to try to at least, and I probably need Dr. Jones to attend again, to really just come up with a plan in regards to a three-year projection, just to get some midterm consensus about the thing, if that's okay. Yeah? I'll bring it back, and we'll schedule a special finance meeting for Wednesday. Or was it Thursday? Thursday. Yeah? Okay?
All right. What time is your meeting on Thursday? You're on.
Thinking 4 o'clock?
Huh? 4? What time is our meeting on Thursday?
Let us decide. 5?
Oh, perfect.
Okay? All right? Thank you.
Any other comments?
I do.
Yeah.
Okay, my comments, and I have written all my other
sure.
things, but my big things are that we do have to have an ED. Opening a middle school requires the expertise of an educational professional with middle school experience, and I think we'd be crazy not to do that. Also, with regard to fundraising, any other organization, the board is responsible for fundraising. So I think it would be unfair to have the new ED bear a significant responsibility in this area. They should work with the board on fundraising. Also, I believe the teachers, yes, should get a salary increase. This is an educational institution, and they are the important part of that. On the other side, however, on all the salaries, I don't know that we need to do it all in one fell swoop. I think maybe transitioning them over a 2-year period of some kind might be helpful as well. But that's basically what.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, that closes up the budget discussion. Oh, Michael, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and Pete.
Oh, then, I'm sorry, didn't mean to.
So yeah, I would, at this point, I'm prepared to support a 6% increase in teacher salaries. I would also vote to continue for 1 more year the retention bonuses. And then thirdly, I would reinstate the 5 IAs that are not currently funded in the proposed 2019-20 budget. And then I would add a fundraising goal of $200,000 to the executive director. What's that?
Caretaker. Executive director.
Yeah. And then, but in addition to that, they should be responsible for grant writing and soliciting corporate donations as to help make that goal.
Yeah.
So that would increase the fundraising budget from 375 to 575.
Okay, we'll model accordingly. Pete? Pete?
Yes.
You got anything for us?
No, I think you heard my comments. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
So we're wrapping up.
We're wrapping up. This item is closed, and thank you for it. Oh, Phoebe?
Sorry, but we cannot wait for the teacher discussion to be just tabled because those teachers need contracts.
So I'm happy to pass a resolution. I think Margaret's idea of staggering 6% over 2 years, or whether it's 5% over 2 years, I'm happy to vote for that. So that the teachers know that our spirit is, the intent is to catch them up, or some variation of that, because they are the heroes of the school. So I'm happy to,
Well, I motion for this board to decide a 6% raise this year. Do I have a second?
With or without the retention bonus?
No retention bonus at
you
this
can't
stage.
get away with the
Frank
retention.
Yeah.
is moving for a 6% increase in the 2019,
In the new
2020
Yes.
for the new fiscal year.
Do I get a second?
Sorry, Frank, let me just ask the question again.
For the teachers'
The
fee.
retention bonuses have already been factored in previous years, not retention bonuses going forward. I'm talking about the balloon payments that have accumulated over the past year or two.
Understand the question. The retention bonus for the returning teachers was paid in fiscal year 20.
It's already been paid?
That's already been paid, it's done.
Yeah.
2018.
But for last year.
For last
Yeah.
year, no, for last
Not
year.
for this year.
No,
No.
not for this
Not for
year.
this
But for this year, we have a contractual agreement to pay.
No.
No. That's what we have to decide, whether or not we're going to include it in the correctional agreement.
Or we can, I wanna just voice an opinion
Does that-
here. I
does
think
that
we
make
need to
sense?
offer, we need to offer the 6% rates right now. If we wanna amend the contracts after deliberation, we can still do the end
Okay, so I
contract
just have
amendment.
I have a question. What is your recommendation? You know the teachers better than anybody there.
We should give them the
The
raise.
6% and hold off on the balloon?
I think at this point, we should hold off on the balloon because the budget is so tight and there's a lot of work to be done to
Okay,
see
yes.
how we can fund it.
Can I please add that our classified employees, who are the backbone of our school, also need contracts soon, and I'm highly advocating for them to get a 6% raise as well. I know for a fact if they do not, we will lose some of them.
I'm happy
Which
to
are
go
the-
6% across the board.
Which is the,
Okay, well, we had two, right?
Two motions.
You had one at staggering the raises?
No, we're just taking his
no,
motion.
my motion was
Yeah.
6% this year for teachers.
For
You had,
teachers.
there needs to be an amendment for the classified, the IAs.
You make it.
You've got to make it.
You've got to make it.
Oh, okay,
Whoever
so
makes
then,
the
I make the motion so that Pete can hear me, that we also for the, in
Make a friendly
addition,
amendment to your motion.
for the
add-
amendment to the motion for the board to consider a 6% raise for the teachers and a 6% raise for the IAs.
Admin,
No,
just
classified.
classified.
No, classified.
Classified.
Is it IAs, is that?
IAs and BIIs, so
Yeah, so
classified.
that's why you call it.
Okay,
classified.
IAs and BIAs. So do I have a second?
Second.
Let's take a vote. Michael?
Yes.
Margaret?
Yes.
It's a yes for me?
Yes, for me.
Sorry, that needed to say, did it need to say without getting the retention bonus? Does it need to be
No,
explicit?
No, by virtue of the fact that it's not included, it's not in the motion.
You said aye? I say aye. Okay, good.
Pete?
Pete? Pete's no.
Pete's
So
a no.
6-1. Thank you, Frank, for that discussion.
Okay.
Let's move on to, I believe, Vicky, you're up next. It's the review of the rollover school committee budget.
Right, so, we talked
Can you-
about this in
I'm sorry,
the,
can you go up there? So Pete can hear and go on camera.
Yeah.
so we have a few, committees in the school, such as the SEL committee, the green team, the, garden committee, and they have raised funds throughout the years leading up to now, and most of those committees have about $3,000 to $5,000 in their accounts, and they are not spending it, but potentially they could spend the money in 1 year, and that would be a big impact on the budget. So we should look into limiting the rollover fund so that whatever they raise in 1 year, they also have to spend in that year. And the rollover is probably, I would say, either $500 or $1,000 at the most, so that if all committees in one moment wanted to take their funds out, it wouldn't hit the budget so hard. So, up to you if you think that's a good solution. In the year one of the school existence, it had been decided by the board at the time that committees that are ongoing can roll over their funds unlimited, and that's what happened so far. It was also decided that the GPA and the classrooms cannot roll over funds because they switch every year. So it was clear that they would have to spend their funds always in the year that they raise the funds. So only ongoing committees were allowed to roll over funds. But it has led to the fact that they fundraise and accumulate money that is in the budget always, but it's not spent and it's not really set aside either, because it's a sub item of the fundraising line item, and it always helps to create whatever net loss or income we have, but it's still in the sub bookkeeping with those committees, and if they decide, and we have given them the right to spend that money since they raised that money as committees, and they have chosen to not spend it over years.
Yeah, we get it. Michael, do you want to comment first? I'll get started.
Yeah, so my opinion is that if a committee raises money for the school, that they should, if they're raising money because they have, let's say, an expense that's gonna occur because if they need to raise money over 2 years, I'd like to give them the opportunity to do that. I would just like to know what it is that they wanna spend it on, as to, that they're not just holding it to just hold it, but that there's something that they have in mind to spend it on that needs to raise, where they need to raise more money than what they did in 1 year. So that would be my opinion.
Margaret?
Where is this money held? Where do we see that money?
It's fundraising, I was looking for it too.
It's in the
It's in the
fundraising
general
account, and there is a sub bookkeeping that is nowhere. It's with Exet and with us in the office where we follow what committee earns or fundraises how much. But it's all in the line item fundraising.
How much is left in that?
Sorry?
What is the money
As
held?
I said, it's about 4 committees, I think 4 committees, and they have anywhere between $3,000 and $5,000 each.
So it's $20,000 which are not spent yet, which are in the fundraising. They're in the general fund if you look at it, but they're earmarked.
So what's the impact to the I mean, if this money is held aside, then there shouldn't be an impact
It's
to
not
our
held
budget.
aside.
It's not held aside, it's buried in the general fund.
Yeah.
Well, that's not good.
That's why I'm saying, because it's not a separate line item, it is considered fundraising income, and since over the years it has been practiced that they don't spend it, it looked nice for the fundraising income, and the fundraising costs were lower, or the expenses, but it worries me a little bit seeing that these amounts always increase and they don't spend it, and it could hit us hard.
But if it's there, I don't see how it's gonna hit us hard. It's been fundraised, it's there, so if they need, when they need to use it, they should be able to get it, right?
Yeah.
I think there should be a separate account for each committee that shows what their, it should be transparent, basically, I think.
It is transparent if they come to the office and look at what I have.
No, it
as
should
a
be
bookkeep-
transparent to him.
Then Ryan would have to
Okay,
set up
go ahead.
sub bookkeeping
Yeah.
for a fundraising account.
Well, yes, obviously has, if the money is already there. Still
Not
not,
in the not in the budget that is.
no, I know, yeah. No.
My concern
Yeah.
my concern is that if we're asking these committees to spend the money on the year that they raised it, then maybe they're just gonna be forced to be reckless and spend it on something we really don't need. Whereas maybe another committee needs the money, and maybe they can work together to use that money for another purpose. Or like Michael said, have that money accumulate over a 2-3 year period for a large purchase. So it's tough to.
I agree. If someone knew what they wanna buy with the money, then that could be officially set aside. The question is, if a committee has enough money and doesn't have a spending plan, then why not give that cafe date or that fundraising opportunity to someone else who needs a fundraising opportunity? Within the school, right now it has been always very clearly determined how many Goethe cafes, which we won't have next year, but with how many each committee and each classroom gets. But for example, 5th grade is always short on that to finance science camp. So if a green team doesn't need funds because they have enough, then they could give their opportunities to someone else. So I'm just saying, why do they need to raise funds if they have funds? They should spend it a year or maybe in a 2-year span, but they shouldn't, they
Well, I
collect
think
their money
if
for 10
somebody, if a
years.
committee is good at raising money, that's a really good thing, so.
It's a good thing, yeah.
We should try to get them to either, propose a budget before they raise the money and use it, towards the goal. Or maybe we could talk about using that money to help another committee, so that wasn't asking them to raise
Correct.
money. But all these committees roll up to you as a director of operations?
It's in the fundraising and the bookkeeping, yeah.
I think we need to separate it out. I think this is a recommendation that should come from the fundraising committee, if anything, just policy-wise. Everything should be separate. I don't think committees who are really good at fundraising should be penalized by taking some of their funds and giving it to another committee. That's just what I think. Ultimately, I'm looking for a recommendation from the fundraising committee on policy on the committees that are raising funds. On a side note, I can't believe the GPA fundraises directly into the school. If there are GPA members here, I would suggest highly that you form your own organization and keep it completely separate. That's my 2 cents.
There are a few really good marketing people who are parents at the school, really top-notch marketing people. I would recommend that they meet with this, the committees meet with these individuals, and they decide whether we can launch an advertising campaign, run multiple ads to recruit students for the new school year, and see whether we can generate 200. I'd rather raise a sustainable revenue of multiple years of revenue for people signing up. So if that would result in getting 5 more students, they'd probably break even in that effort, but next year we'll see the benefit of that. So I would advocate, let's go and spend that money to get students.
But that's not our
Yeah.
question.
You asked for our feedback, so I'm doing my
No,
feedback.
but I can tell you there will be very high emotion involved with using funds that a certain committee raised for their purposes and then now trying to get
Well,
those
I'm
funds.
saying that
for
their
some-
purposes is the greater good of the school. The greater good of the school is currently served by getting more students. That's all I'm advocating.
I think that we should cut the tail on these things, just cut the tail, and then, that's what insurance professionals call a tail, right? You just cut the liability. So we cut the tail on this year in collaboration with the teams, see whether we can reach consensus going forward. I think it's right, it's proper to say, we need to establish policy, and I'm happy to have that in the finance committee. Yeah? Okay?
Pete?
Yeah, again, very difficult to hear this time. I don't know why this connection doesn't work as well last time, but I think the focus is on recruitment, and I think that's really should be the job of the executive director.
Pete, we're talking about the rollover of the money by each committee. If we should, at the end of the year, they can spend the money, or is it okay to roll it out? Oh, that was just a suggestion. Okay.
So, in that case,
Sure.
Okay, thanks, Pete. Anybody else want to comment? Do you have a motion for,
Until finance committee.
I don't think there's a motion.
There is a
I'll
motion.
make a motion. I suggest we go with a recommendation on rolling it over for next year until that policy is recommended by the finance committee. Second?
okay, second?
Discussion. I would like to see the,
I'm sorry, just a second.
Oh,
We just got a question before.
She had a question.
someone,
Oh,
but no, but
you-
someone, no, you got a second, someone's got
Yeah,
a second.
before you start discussion, you have to have a
Someone
second.
second.
I just make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no, I would like to see what these committees are supposed to be doing, what's,
Yep.
yeah.
Take a vote. Mike?
Yes.
Margaret?
Yeah.
That's a yes from me.
Yes for me?
No.
And I say also no because I want to cut the tail.
Pete?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so
Well, we'll,
5 to 2, roll it over.
Roll it over and policy development.
Thank you. Next up is the site expansion committee report. Ladies here.
I'd like to yield the floor to a colleague in the governance committee.
No,
We're site expansion, sorry, I thought you were talking about, sorry.
Sorry. Which one do I have? Do I have to be fast or? No? Alright, we're going. Where we are today, so as of our last special board meeting where we approved the opening of the middle school, middle years program, we have, started our phase 3 for to open the middle school by August 2019. There's a revised budget. Some of you got copies on it. You've seen the ADA numbers and the income projections. Finance committee is still working on that. I know they're working very closely with Chris and the administrative leadership team, but the tentative budget was approved at the last board meeting. Our jobs have been posted, so credentialed teachers have been posted. The administrative leadership team is reviewing the candidates. Some of you had last one we had 15.
We're at like 22 from around there.
22 candidates, and just off the cuff, like, do we have some stellar rock stars in there that we were looking for?
I don't know about stellar rock stars, but just looking at credentials, and this is gonna come up with an admin, but just looking at credentials, for the ELA social studies, there are 6 who have the appropriate credential. For math and science, there are 3, and then for the multiple subject single classroom setup, there are 3 of those applicants who have the appropriate credential. For the 2 single subject ones, that's a mix of multiple subject credentials and the 2 single subject that are needed to teach whichever it is.
I'm going to take that as a thumbs up. Okay. The committee actually took a step to develop a hiring process. Chris worked with Scott, Casey, and Biggie to actually come up with a hiring process. I guess the school never had one, and I believe the administrative leadership team has decided to adopt that as the official hiring process for the entire school. They can provide that to the board of trustees at a later time. And most recently, Chris facilitated vendor presentations for the exploratory program. These are the electives that are going to be offered to the middle years program students. And I will tell you, if you hadn't seen that meeting, I mean, it was probably the opposite of this. It was an amazing 1 hour. So we had 4 vendors. 2 were really based around coding and development of digital applications and apps, and then 2 vendors that were around art and music. And I think Chris did a phenomenal job of bringing just an amazing group of people together. And it's just the next step on what the middle years program could look like for our students. If you are interested, please join our meeting. Moving on, this is the latest enrollment projections as of today. And Nazmia is going to talk about a little bit of marketing in a few minutes. That is, sorry, there's one more slide. And So most controversial, set for last. We've reached what's called community feedback. We've had a few meetings, well actually one meeting where we had several activists who joined the meeting and proceeded to interrupt the work of the committee. Since then, there's been, I would say, some tension between Marina Del Rey Middle School, specifically Ms. Machado, the teachers, some teachers in the middle school in Marina Del Rey, and also UTLA in general. They had a town hall with Del Rey Neighborhood Council last Thursday. It was a packed room, just charged with UTLA screaming down the charter school movement. Nick Melvoin was there, and I think he got 5-10 sentences in before he was heckled out as well. There is definitely a mood change on campus. In the site expansion meetings, I think the last meeting was a little tense, where feeling from several members of the committee was the board made a decision and they've been really quiet and they haven't said anything and we're all nervous and what's going on, the board should make a statement. My response to that was that is not the board's responsibility. The board's responsibility is to make long-term strategic decisions for the school and leave it in the hands of the executive director. We do not have an executive director at this time to facilitate communications like that with anyone, and neither should we be doing so, unless we decide to change. There is a strong push from many people on the committee to get a message out, and my comment to the committee was, it is our job in the time being, until we have an executive director, to assess what the situation in the school is, because everyone in that room are teachers, the principal, the head of operations, and the vice principal, and a few parents who actually are very hands-on in the school. So we can perform an assessment, we can make a recommendation, and we would not respond, but that we would make a recommendation to the board so that either we respond or the board responds on behalf of the school. So, with that being said, I would like to open that part of it up for discussion. And before I do that, there is an update that I just found out about it, I think this today or something. Something happened with the middle school with Prop 39. Frank?
Well, I guess there is, I don't know what the genesis is of this, but apparently there is, something with the intent to enroll forms on the Prop 39, which UTLA attaches themselves to. That's what I can gather from the.
Can we be more specific, Frank? I don't
Yeah,
I think the UTLA claimed that some intent to enroll forms were misclassified, and that potentially that will impact, or they're trying to force a decision, force somebody's hand to revisit that decision. That is what I'm delineating from that.
Can I make sure I understand? At the last board meeting, we said that if we didn't accept the offer and we go into negotiations, that we could never lose what we had. Are we now saying that as a result of more negotiations or some other activity, there is now
stepping back?
Stepping back? Is that what, even though you're not sure?
I think it's conceivable, yes.
So, sorry, hang on. Frank, is this a rumor or is this?
So maybe Scott may know more.
Oh, yes.
I was at the meeting on Thursday evening. What was called into question is what we put on our Prop 39 form, which says that we are taking 58 students from Short Avenue Elementary, and that will be our entire 6th grade.
Right. Yeah, okay.
So that was called into question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so, right. But just to clarify, when we file it on November 1st, we are asked to look at where the catchment area is for our students. And so what they were objecting to was the fact that the Prop 39 office had us use the local elementary schools as our catchment area, and then divided up the number of potential people that live in that area, not that go to the school, that could be potential applicants and enrollees in our school. So what the union was focusing in on was that if you look at our application from November 1st, it lists all the elementary schools in our catchment area and estimates how many kids from that catchment area would be potentially enrollees.
I understand that.
Sorry, Scott seems to have more.
Okay, sorry.
Scott.
So the way this looks to the community at large is Short Avenue Elementary does go through 6th grade. If we took 58 of their students, which again, you're not saying that's what it means, but when we've done Prop 39 in the past, we look at a bunch of different schools. We don't take our whole student group from one school. So what this looks like is we're going to take 58 students, which means they lose 2 teachers. Short Avenue Elementary actually didn't intend to enroll, and none of their students said that they intended to come to Goethe for 6th grade. So what was called into question is what we put on our Prop 39 application. What was also called into question is what happened with Nick Melvoin and what happened with the Prop 39 office in approving this, and how could they have approved this when they saw this. So there's scrutiny, which quite possibly, maybe could result in us losing one of the 2 classrooms, is what was represented at the meeting.
By who? Verdell?
By the panel who was sitting there from LUSD.
So as I understand it, we accepted our offer, okay? And the only reason under which we could be, lose classroom space is if we don't meet our in-district ADA. So that is the only thing that can refute that. Now, we are also asking at the same time for an alternative agreement, and if the alternative agreement changes the allocation of classrooms, then we are in effect changing our Prop 39 award. But my understanding from the Prop 39 office is that we have been given an offer, and it is up to us to meet the in-district enrollment that offer contains, which is 459 kids between TK and 6. And if we don't reach that, we are subject to scrutiny and potentially, as we all know, when we sign that award, that we could face surcharges if we don't use up the entire in-district ADA, which has been, by the way, the issue for us in the last 3 years, where we've never met our in-district ADA.
So may I ask a stupid question? So it seems like something was filled out, was not scrutinized, filled out correctly or incorrectly?
Correctly, because so the way it works is.
Got it. It was filled out correctly. Now the Prop 39 office is now being challenged by UTLA on why they didn't scrutinize it further.
It's that you're mixing. The UTLA is mixing apples and oranges. The application is about where in our boundaries outside of the school we could potentially solicit enrollees. It is never meant to be that because we say 58 for Short Elementary, that we are taking 58 kids from Short Elementary. It is just the area in which Short Elementary, the district boundaries of that school, that's where we're saying potentially some of our kids could come from.
Okay, so I'm sorry, so Scott is shaking his head a little bit.
I'm saying the way that it looks to the community is.
I understand that, but he's asking me factually.
Factually.
Factually,
Okay, so.
Not perception, and I understand.
So I guess.
Factually,
But in previous years, in that table 16.5, we have always listed exactly where the intent to enroll forms came from for the 6th grade, because we had to solicit intent to enroll forms. And that has not been done this time, from what we understand.
Yes,
because the 6th grade intent to enroll forms did not come 58 from Short Elementary as it is represented in that table in the application. And that's what UTLA is questioning. And honestly, LAUSD did not have a good answer for that. So they were very puzzled and very much like, oh, okay, we need to look into this, and this is, so it wasn't like they would have had a clear answer, and this is how it worked, and this is how this came about. They said we need to go back and look into this.
Is it also my understanding that we had a sweetheart deal with LAUSD and don't actually have to submit the forms in the last couple of years.
That is correct.
So
That
they
is
were,
correct.
there was,
Yes.
there, so there
That
was.
is correct. They
there was a
always
tr-
said to us, you need to have those intent to enroll forms ready for us to look at it. But we trust what you put in those tables, and that's what we're going with. You
So-
don't have to scan hundreds of forms to us.
Right, so we have not provided them to them in the past, they have taken us for.
Not for the last 3 years.
So, but in the past, just to understand it, if that table 16.5, you would then just, you had like, for example, Frank would be coming out of, sending a kid out of
We had like
Sherman
20 to
Oaks,
30
Sherman Oaks and
districts
School District Bel Air, you would have put that, me and that
Yeah.
Bel Air School District, I got it, okay.
So thank you, so it seems like you did have an update for us. Alright, so moving on. So,
So we just move on, there's no recommendation to,
at this,
to correct the misunderstanding, if we're saying.
at this time, what I'm hearing is it's still a rumor, that it's still too new and young to actually make a formative response.
We're gonna cover that.
We're waiting for LAUSD to come back to us.
We're gonna cover
Yeah,
that.
okay.
Okay,
So,
Alright,
all right, that being said, I'd like to open it up for discussion as far as, the board's, thoughts on where we are, what we should communicate, and, how we should reassure the community. Or whether we should do it at all.
Alright, Frank, you wanna start off?
This sounds like a political nightmare to us, because,
You voted for it.
no, I mean, not that, I mean, you asking about the Prop 39 already?
I know, I'm saying the middle school, it's all, yeah.
Yeah, so it sounds like a political nightmare. I think the fight with UTLA, you know, if it is intentionally or, the misrepresentation, or the deviation from the process we had in the past sounds like a nightmare we don't have to have right now. I'm looking forward to see what's in closed session, what we're discussing there, whether this is a material breach and whatever it may mean for the existential school. I don't know, I can't tell you, but I think it's a question we should ask when we have legal counsel there. But other than that, keep up the good work on the site expansion committee. Yeah, so I appreciate what you do. Thank you.
Alex?
Yeah, so for any bad news, you get in front of you don't wait. You go out there and you present the facts and data and everything transparent. And you share that with the school community. You have my magic 2 words, town hall, invite whomever that needs to be at that town hall. And if there has been an honest mistake, so people can understand that there is an honest mistake. But if there isn't, then in these situations we have to have transparency. I would not try to play a pokey game with the community at large.
Right, I'm gonna, the Prop 39, go to closed session, talk about that. I was really interested, you mentioned about 4 vendors and possibility of, that, is that gonna be part of are we gonna make a decision on that pretty soon? Or?
Yeah, the committee's gonna make a decision on it on Thursday.
Okay, you think that's gonna help us in our marketing?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, because we need another 10, 15 kids.
Right, we'll get.
Okay.
Why not, Michael?
Oh, yeah, so just go on the record, there was no mistake with the Prop 39 application. The Prop 39 office reviewed our application. Kevin Davis from Procopio reviewed the application before it was submitted, so it was all done according to the regulations for Prop 39. This is somewhat of a fishing expedition that UTLA is going under, and not to say that they won't be successful, but we had, everything was approved both by the Prop 39 staff and our Kevin Davis of the Procopio attorney before we submitted.
Okay. So,
Pete, you got anything to ask, to ask?
so I'd just like to say that thank you for the comments. We'll wait until closed session to discuss it a little bit further. But ultimately, I agree with what Alex said, is that we need to get to the front of it, and that has been sort of what we've been struggling with. So what I'm hearing from the board is that we have sort of the authority to go send notices to the organization saying this is where we are, this is where we stand, and we're united as a school to open the middle school program, these are the facts. Does that sound right? I mean, make a motion and take a vote?
Yeah, well, so again, I just want to be clear on the fact that one point you made, and I don't want to get into an argument here, but I don't think that the discussion that we don't have an ED flies with me. We have a consultant we've retained exclusively for the purpose of expansion of the school.
Correct, but their roles and responsibilities are clearly delineated in the contract, and the ALT has taken a lot of, I would say, leadership to specifically away from the consultant.
Which contract? So have we had the conversation with our consultant to say, are they willing to address this issue with the other side, with the people that are angry?
The committee, in the site expansion committee, they basically control the deliverables that the consultant does. And in the committee, the majority of the members felt that it was not the consultant's responsibility to engage the community in an official capacity, that it's the responsibility of Scott, Casey, and Biggie to engage the community.
The message was it's the responsibility of the board.
Yeah,
Because
so
the board
it came back to.
So is it this decision of the board or the decision of the
So that's the thing, is the site expansion committee can get in front of it, you're much more robust than the board is, and we can try to stem the tide and control the message within our local community.
So I mean,
And we can discuss that in closed session as well.
yeah. So for example, let's just take to look at new proposals for a legal service.
Okay.
Is that the permit of the board or is that the permit of the executive director?
It should be vetted by the executive director and brought up to the board.
I don't even know why it needs to be brought up to the board, but
It's a
what I'm saying
contract
is,
that they might not have authority
what
to
I'm saying
assign.
is to pick and choose about what the board does. So the board should categorically not interject themselves in the operations of the school.
Correct. I totally agree with you, right there.
And do we do that?
We're without.
We're talking about something, yeah.
Let's not get off line, because we're running out of time here, and we gotta go to closed session.
Okay, I'd just like to add, I don't know if we should be on the round, but final point to, I'm sorry, Allison, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
I actually had this conversation with Chris at our last site expansion committee meeting on why our site expansion is a Brown Act compliant committee. It is very transparent. If you have any questions on where the school is in the middle school, you can come. Our meeting notes are published. They're also video archived going forward. I can't engage you in conversation, but I can talk to you afterwards. But part of our role in this organization in the last few months has been to really be we'll never be perfect, but to start to become more transparent. And it's still a work in progress, but this middle school, all these middle school conversations are on public record and every Thursday. Most every Thursday. So anyway, I'll end that.
Alex?
Yes, I'd like to yield the floor to Danielle, please.
Okay. Now, this is just gonna be a presentation, we're not gonna take a vote on this, right?
No, we're actually asking for the recommendations to be accepted. There's a vote.
Well, I saw the presentation, but that wasn't finalized in the governance committee.
No, it was revised.
Yeah, it was
The
right, but
feedback.
it wasn't taken back to the governance committee to vote.
No, the governance committee doesn't have to vote. The governance committee
They
provided
never-
their input.
They never finalized, we never finalized, we never got the final
There's no
version.
voting mechanism for the governance committee.
It's a recommendation.
Well,
We never got to see the final.
People provided their recommendation and Danielle incorporated their recommendation
But
into the
the
document.
governance committee never saw the
Well,
final.
they can give their input, some of them are here tonight, they can provide their input as to whether their input got accepted
That's
or not.
not the
No,
recommendation.
I mean, it's okay, if we wanna delay a process for
Well, I'm just
onboarding
saying
board
that
members
We
properly,
have to follow
we can keep delaying
procedures.
it.
We have to, you gotta follow procedures.
Well, I'm saying there is 3 members of the governance, 4 members of the governance
This is
committee
not,
here,
this
and they
is
can
not,
provide
this
their
is not,
input.
this is not the place to do
Are
that.
you
Can we just
So we
hear
can,
it?
we just wanna delay the process more, do you, Monsieur, is that the?
No, I'm just saying, this is not the proper procedures.
Let's make a motion.
Yeah,
Can we hear the
Alex,
presentation?
Are you making a motion that we?
It's
review
vote here
and
for
approve?
vote, it's here for a vote.
No, it just says governance committee report. It doesn't say that there's a motion. So I'm asking you, are you making a motion to approve what Danielle is about to present?
So are you saying that item 3 needed to say motion to review the budget? Does it say motion to?
No, I'm saying, are you making a motion?
Yes.
Okay, that's.
Clearly, yes, clearly.
I'm not debating, I just wanna know,
What
are
is
you
the, what
making,
is, what is the motion?
the motion is to approve what Danielle
The
is
motion-
about to present.
Yes.
Okay, got it. And we have a second?
I wanna see what's
We
going
wanna
on,
see it.
so I second it.
Very good, okay, that's all, I just wanna.
So then
follow
that's
through.
the presentation, you can vote after.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
copies as well, if you'd like to follow along.
This was never uploaded, right?
You guys would like to follow?
Sure.
So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Danielle Mason. I'm a third grade parent here at Goethe, and I'm also on the governance committee. And as you know, may have guessed, the governance committee is committed to establishing best practices to help the board and the school move forward. And so I worked on this recruitment process, and as you'll see, I'll walk you through the steps and I'll go as quickly as possible because I know we're short on time. But I worked on this process actually with the company that I work for, which is the Wonderful Company. The Wonderful Company actually started 2 charter schools in the Central Valley of California. They're both very successful. They are 10 years old, just like us, and last year's high school graduating class went on to pretty impressive universities, Harvard, Princeton, Stanford, and one really interesting fact about that is 86% of those students, their parents have never gone to college. So I would assume that those schools are doing some pretty amazing things. So I worked with the head of talent acquisition to define a process for us. And so what are the best practices for the wonderful organization schools, and how could that help us impact what our process looks like? So the first step would be to define and promote the Board of Trustees positions, and that would be to define the composition criteria of the board. And so we've assigned an owner for that, which would be Alex, to define the composition in accordance with the Goethe bylaws. So what types of people would be on the board, what types of careers would they be in, and how would they fit well with the rest of the team. And from there, we could develop a position description to recruit potential members. So that would include a description of Goethe as a school, what type of role they would be filling, and then define the requirements. So the type of commitment that it would involve, the length of term, etc., and then also list qualifications. And then from there we can determine who the Board of Trustees, stakeholders, and potentially admin would be to review that description. From there, once that's all defined, we would move along to marketing of available Board of Trustees positions. So naturally that would be viewable on our website. We could send out a Goethe email blast. It could be available on LinkedIn. There's actually a free site called, LinkedIn is actually quite expensive to list jobs on, but there's a free site called the LinkedIn Board Member Connect page. And then all DOT members would share with their networks and promote on their LinkedIn pages. If they don't have a LinkedIn account, they can use another social platform. And then we can share those also, the positions, with some local professional networks and organizations, like the German American League of Los Angeles, Step Up Women's Network, depending on what type of criteria we're looking to fill. Any questions on that so far?
No, not for me, thank you.
Okay. So application process. So we've seen some challenges with the application process here at Goethe for the Board of Trustees.
Danielle, so are we asking questions now just on what
I
she
will do it
said?
at the end.
Let's
Yeah,
do it at the end.
so
I
just so
just
you
asked,
understand.
I'm refraining from commenting, thank you.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Okay, so I'll assume the same for all. So we've seen some challenges on the application submission and review process here, and so we've established a few simple steps which we thought could help alleviate that challenge. So the application right now does not mention that it's public information, public shared information, so that's just something simple that should be, we recommend adding to the application so applicants are aware that their information will be public. For applications, we recommend accepting email. Email is preferable, so there's timestamping involved and there's a confirmation of receipt available, but then also hard copy submissions was recommended by legal. And then we recommend that going to a neutral party, like Scott Michelson, or to the main Goethe office. So that way neutral parties are collecting applications. And then from there, they would be reviewed as a group. So all Board of Trustee members would have the opportunity to review all the applications, whether that be at a board meeting or some other forum. And then all candidates that the board is interested in, they would follow up with in 3 to 5 days with those candidates. So from there, the process would move to a candidate screening. So a candidate screening would be developed a document that's a simple list of questions to ask potential board members to determine whether they would be available, that they would be able to commit to this type of position, etc. So that screener could be developed, and our recommendation was that Mr. Michelson or another neutral party conducts the screening with those candidates. And so once those candidates are screened and we determine who is eligible, they would move on to the candidate experience. And so really the goal is to really woo the candidate. So just like if you're applying for any job, you want to feel like they want you just as much as you want them. This is a volunteer position. And so we would promptly respond to those prospective candidates. So quickly pass on no candidates, and then they say in recruiting, keep them warm. So keep the people warm that you're really interested in and proactively follow up with them, and then schedule an interview to take place within 2 weeks of the phone screening. So for non-parents at the school, we also recommend them attending a tour so they could hear more about the IB curriculum, the philosophy at our school, and that would be hosted by either a current board of trustee, admin, GPA member, or a parent. And then moving along to the interview and selections process. So candidate interviews can really take place in one or two ways. So option one is they would interview with as many board of trustees present at once, but less than quorum, because if there are more than half of the board members there, then that's considered a board meeting and that's public. So then the 2 remaining interviews would take place with the remainder of the board of trustees. So the reco here is to not have more than 3 interviews. So that way candidates are not driving around all of Los Angeles to meet with 7 different board members. And then they would have 1 interview with admin like Ms. Jones. And then option 2 would be 1 interview with 3 members of board of trustees plus admin present, and then 1 interview at a board meeting. So essentially they would be interviewing with everyone else at the board meeting, because if there's more than half of the board there, you're maintaining quorum. And so each board of trustee member would be assigned a focus and would ask questions related to that. So why are they interested in Goethe? What they know about the IB philosophy, their interest in social emotional learning. And then from there, they would move on to the debrief and selection process. So we thought that it would be really simple and really make the process move smoother if first they would just run across the table with a yes/no response or neutral. And from there, discuss the candidates that have a higher average of yes responses. And then determine, based on the number of board of trustees spots available, how many people they're able to give offers to. And that's what I've got. Yes?
I think the only thing which needs to be discussed is what is your recommendation in regard to the interview panel, 1 or 2?
1. 2 might feel very impersonal at a board meeting with everyone here present on an interview.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No further questions.
Yes, who are members of the governance committee that are here? Could you all please stand up?
No. We gotta put another time, you gotta get going. Do you have any questions?
Yes. Do the members of the governance committee find that what has been presented is in fact what was discussed?
Alex, we're not getting into that. Stick to the, yes, you have questions about the presentation or not?
None of this thing.
Okay, I think this is great. I love seeing process. Thank you very much. It seems like you've spent some time on it. I'm really curious as to the position description. I don't think it goes into it. Serving on this board, I've actually recognized deficiencies as far as skill sets. I would hope that more time would be spent on that and composing a description on the ideal candidate.
Right.
And I don't see that here. As far as marketing, that's all pretty vanilla and straightforward. I would also like, from a candidate screening standpoint, I would like to see a background check, just to make sure that there's no liability in the school going forward. I've also heard, again, rumors about, and in my experience in trying to recruit board members, that there are always individuals who start on a board and then want to become an executive director or are looking for some position. I think that this doesn't really capture that. I think that's a conversation we need to have with the board members. I don't think that's wrong. I just think that needs to be very clear. Again, it goes into the description of who we hire.
Yeah, I think this is
or
about
not
process though, so how the process is followed versus, I think you're.
I know, and there's no
Okay.
process, and just about the process, I have no real comments other than
Okay.
I would have liked to have seen it gone to a committee and with this finalized before we voted on it. So I don't necessarily agree that Scott is the one who interviews them, but I think that should come from the committee, and I would need to understand why he was selected or why not, and someone to stand up there and defend it. Those are my 2 cents.
Can I
Can you
address that?
answer that?
Yeah, Scott was selected at our committee, so when we discuss this within the committee.
I'm just giving you an example.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
sure.
So there are some things on here that,
But
you
the
know,
committee,
Okay,
your
but-
question was you would have wanted the committee to do it, the committee did. That's
Yeah.
what the answer is.
The committee's recommendation was Scott. This
Okay.
was presented at our committee, so I think Lucio's comments were that the committee maybe didn't approve it, and really there were some edits.
Well, there was a lot
following
of
our
edits
meeting.
done, right,
Alright.
from the original, so that was my concern, is it never came back to the governance committee.
The final
For
edits?
the final edits, yes. Because I understand it was presented to our attorney, they
Mhm.
reviewed it, and we never got it back to review.
I did send it back today, but, I did send an email to the team today, but also,
We can't,
Yeah.
as a Brown Act, we can't comment, we can't have a discussion.
Okay.
you have to do it in public.
okay.
Going back
Sure.
to transparency. The nature of the governance committee is Brown Act, this should be discussed in public. If there are public comments on this, it should be taken. I don't know why anyone would care. I don't want Scott to interview anybody, actually, that's my personal opinion. I'm kidding, Scott. I will keep people, it's a long night. Anyway, but that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, and I think the process should work, but we still, the request, the number one request of our committee was to take a look at the board members we have now, the composition, and to recommend where the needs are, maybe other areas where we're lacking, and that
Right.
has never been addressed, and I don't see where we're addressing it here.
I think that's been a pending conversation though for an entire year, and I think that's where it says in here, it's bullet pointed, what is the board composition owner, Alex? So where would we define, that's on page 1.
That's what the committee voted? That Alex
The
is in
committee
charge of
vote-
the.
No, the
No.
committee, maybe the wording of that I would work with the board to construct the criteria. What the committee has been struggling with is that they don't know from the board what is the criteria of the attributes, qualities, experience that they're looking for from board members. So I agree that I would take on that piece, which is why I'm hoping to get a yes vote tonight on this process, so that I can then begin the process of working with the board members of defining the criteria of the board members that we're looking for. For example, do we have preference on professional expertise? Do we have preference on their ability to donate money? What committees will they serve on? Will they actually be an active and engaged board member? Those are all criteria that I would then work with the board, because I'm the board representative on the committee, to work with the board on that subject.
Okay, my comment is, it's backwards. Okay, what he just said you're gonna do next should have been what was done first. What does the board need? Who's on the board? What does the board need? What are the board responsibilities? I think this isn't too involved. I thought that the governance committee was going to be the one to vet the potential members and recommend those members to the board. The board doesn't have to interview all these people in open, I think that I would not even want to be part of a board where I was gonna have to be interviewed and at a board meeting. So it's usually the board governance committee who does all of this and makes recommendations for the board, up or down, do you want this person to be a member? They do all the interviewing, they do all of that part. I just don't agree with a lot of this. I'm sure, yeah, I think some of the stuff is good, but you should have started with the stuff that you were gonna do next. And this is just, it's just too much. It's too
We were
detail.
establishing process, so,
Yeah.
what we heard tonight in this board meeting was that there were two potential board members that were gonna be voted on, there was not a process followed.
That's good.
So here was our recommendation on a process to follow. First is establish criteria, and then move on to these steps.
Michael, it's,
So in, Danielle, in option number one,
Mm-hmm.
am I to understand that the first interview is with no more than 3 board members? And then the second interview outside of a public meeting is with the remaining board of trustee members?
So there will be 3 interviews. The first is with no more than 3, and then 2 interviews following that with the remainder of board members.
But those are private meetings?
Those are private interviews, as it's been happening
So,
in the past.
Mayor, can we, is the selection of a board member and interviewing them considered a serial meeting?
So a serial meeting is when you use a series of communications to build consensus on the board outside of a meeting.
Right.
So it's okay for less than a quorum of the board to meet privately and discuss things.
Right.
But, and for the other less than a quorum group to meet with, individuals privately and discuss things, but there can't be cross-pollination of ideas between those two groups, for lack of a better phrase. So if you're building consensus outside of a meeting, then that is a serial meeting in violation of the Brown Act. It's okay if you're having these meetings kind of in a vacuum, but that's really hard to do. So I would be, careful.
So when
Is there an
you're,
alternate recommendation then? Because this was the recommendation that was approved by people. Greta approved it.
Do you Greta approve this? No, I'm not saying you can't do it, I just said you can do it, just be careful.
Okay.
Right.
It,
Yeah, that's
it
what I
can be
was-
difficult.
yeah, so I wanted to make sure that if you do not talk to other board members about your interview with this potential member, then it's not a serial meeting, correct? But if you do talk to other board members, that then potentially could be considered a serial meeting.
Okay.
So based on that, I would say that the process should be something similar to what we have right now, which is that the executive director and the board president meet with a candidate, and then they make the recommendation to the board of trustees for who that should be. What I would really like is the first part, which is for Alex and the committee to define what it is that we're looking for.
The committee doesn't want to do that, so, sorry, I misspoke, I'll wait for my turn.
So what I would like to do is that the committee and Alex come up with, and the committee reviews what it is we want in the board member, because my read of the bylaws, it doesn't speak to the type of members that we should pick, and so it is really at this point undefined. And so I believe that the role of the governance committee and Alex, if you volunteer to do this, is to come up with that description of what a board member should be. But I would say that the selection, the actual review process is something that should be done again by the executive director and the board president. Because I, in my opinion, either of these two options, option A or option 1 or option 2, are too cumbersome, and it's not worth the risk of one person accidentally talking to another board person, and then we've got a potential violation.
I'd like to comment on Peter's comment on that. Immediately after.
are you done? Okay, Pete, any comments?
Just that, I think it's nice to look at the strengths and weaknesses of the board. It's nice to have a list of priorities in terms of the board members you want to fill. I think you also release flexibility so that you have potential for identifying items you might call members of opportunity that may arise somewhat out of the process. It's not as if we have hundreds of people knocking at the door to become board members. I don't think you want to tie yourself into such a rigid view of effort process that you then miss an opportunity to potentially have somebody join that may not be exactly the desired competency you want. I think until you get to the point where you have so many people to choose from, that you need to have some flexibility. That's it.
Alright, thank you.
Second comment on this one, no way that I would, I think no way that I wanna give the board president and the executive director ever gonna be the authority and the power to have a massive say in the composition of the board. The gerrymandering and that all has to stop. There needs to be there needs to be absolutely no, I think the process is great. I could go either with option 1 and 2. I would not like to have the board president pick its own board, or in collaboration with the administrative director. That's absolutely honest, absolutely. So this is a good start, and I could vote on it today, adding background check to the screening, to the candidate screening.
I'd like to yield my time to Scott.
I was going to speak to exactly what Frank just said, and the reason that we did not start with the value criteria of board members, but we started with the process, is to have more transparency and to prevent nepotism on the board. Danielle, do you mind if I use you as an example? Danielle submitted an application to be on the board of trustees in
August, the first week of school.
the first week of school, and she
But
has
you're
not.
a teacher?
Am I a teacher?
You're a teacher?
No, I'm a parent.
Oh, you're a parent.
She was not acknowledged. She was pushed to the side, and now there are two other people on the last board agenda who were brought up for a vote. So we want some transparency, and we want to make sure there's not nepotism. And I think I speak on behalf of the entire committee that's why we started with the process and not the value criteria.
And if I may add, I came to this committee, to this board, from the governance committee and reported and got your consensus that the governance committee felt that they could not and would not define the criteria of the board meeting, of the board composition. And I took your input. I mean, you maybe some of the board members here were not present or don't remember, which is perfectly okay. But we came to you, got that feedback, because I tried to follow the other process, and the board president told me that I overstepped my boundary. So I went back to the committee and I came here. So, all of these points have been raised to you before. This is not new. If you can't recall, that's okay.
Are you looking at me?
No, I'm talking about.
Did you have a comment?
Yes, I'm part of the governance committee. So the way we basically set this up was a work in progress to be pitched to the board, not to be approved because it's obviously not finished. The thing that we ended up with is that we have this pretty big problem in defining the composition of the board because nobody wanted to commit in any way or another. There was no documentation of it. There was no documentation of expertise. And the other thing that was really difficult to find was we saw that we have a base attitude, but what are the specialist attitudes that we need to define? And that, should that basically go to the governance committee? That's some question. Should it be handled by the board? Should it be handled by the executive director? That is sort of the big questions we got stuck with. And that's why we're presenting the skeleton where to hang things on. We're not building the full resolution for it. And as soon as the definition is in place, that is the criteria to assess the performance of the board. Because you'll be hired by those criteria. If you don't perform them, you'll be assessed by them. So that's a really sticky one, and it needs to be handled very deliberately and carefully set into place that it basically closes out the loop. So for us to jump in and basically throw out the value criteria is over the top.
We're running out of time. We're going to get done at 10 o'clock. So, everyone have a motion to vote on, or we want to?
I wanted to.
Second round?
Yeah, second round. Keep going. So, I'm a little confused then. So when it says, Danielle,
Mhm.
that Alex is going to define the composition in accordance with the bylaws, but then after that, the BOT position description, to include potential members, who's gonna actually do that work in the second, bullet point? With the bold lettering, develop BOT position description.
That would be as a team, so we could put together the description of the school, value statement, right? And then put the role description once the board composition criteria is defined. And then define those role requirements and
So-
put that description together. And so this was really about,
You said
sorry,
the
can I?
team, the team?
The governance committee.
Governance.
To present that next. So we're not saying that everything is developed. We don't have this job description developed yet. This is the whole point of establishing the process, right? So right now, none of you have a job description to look at, but you're still recruiting members of the board. So now the process recommendation is to now establish a process and documentation for what this position would look like, especially when we talk about recruiting new members to the board who aren't familiar with the school. This is a piece of marketing material, essentially, just like something you would post on LinkedIn for an available position at a company.
One of the challenges with the process is that a lot of people don't know how the process is supposed to work. So the reason for getting a vote on this is not defining that, it's not committing you to a profile of a candidate that you're not committed to. This is like in product development. It's a stage gate process. You go from gate 0, where it's chaos, to a process that has been vetted, and then it doesn't end there. But by approving the process, it allows the process to move on to the next gate, which is to define the criteria. And what the governance committee has clearly communicated is that they don't want to be in the position of defining the criteria of the board, because that is not their mandate to be responsible for the board and what the board feels in terms of the strategic plan and where it needs to go.
But Daniela just said that that's exactly what the committee is going to do.
And it's in the
As the
charter.
next step. As the next step.
Yeah.
So we're asking for approve the process so we can go to the next step.
Right, but you just said that the committee is not going to develop the criteria.
Yeah, that I will work with the board to develop the criteria that the board wants for its board composition.
No, that's what I'm trying to, is it the committee that's going to then, you're gonna work with the committee, or you're gonna work with the board? That's what I'm not understanding. So I thought Daniela said it was the committee.
I said in step 1, Alex would work with the board to find, here, I'll go to page 1 for everybody to follow along. Step 1, define board composition criteria. Alex would work with the board on that. Step 2, develop position description to recruit potential members. The governance committee would work on that once Alex has completed step 1.
So what I'm trying to understand is, Alex, how are you going to work with the board to define
I will come up with a set of criteria based on what most boards do, and I will ask you to vote which of those criteria, whether it's in terms of profession, skill, etc., for you to vote on, so that we can get consensus on what you feel the board composition needs to be over the next couple of years in terms of the board composition.
Are you going to address the number of board members? Are you going to
No.
address the number of parents that sit on the board?
No.
Okay, well then, yeah, so then my position is, to me.
I will put it on the questionnaire for you to vote on, but I won't define it. I will ask you to vote on it.
Oh, okay, so that is going to be addressed in this step 1.
In step
Yes.
step 1, the number of board members is 9. That's the maximum, it's in the charter.
Let's get back to the stuff.
Yeah, let's, you know, I
just want, sorry, I think
I wasn't finished.
you're not finished. When
Yeah.
you're finished, I'm gonna make a motion.
Okay, so I understand that it says 9. My point is that if you're coming back to the board, that the proper thing, one of the things that the board should talk about is, do we agree that it should stay at 9, or should we expand it to 11 as part of
Or
this?
maybe some people want to shrink the size of the board. I mean,
Okay,
we
that is well, yes.
can't have
Absolutely, yes, so we can talk about all 3. But I I only feel like the process is worthwhile if we're going to address that issue at the board level, if that's in fact what you're asking us to approve today, that the board first make that decision. And then secondarily, I also think we need to address the number of parents that we are going to have on the board. And is it going to be a majority or is it going to be less than a majority? And so my opinion is that if the board is going to work with you to define the composition, that a composition question is both should include both the number and also the whether or not we have a limitation.
Agreed, Michael, and all I'm saying is that would happen as the next step of the process. It doesn't preclude us from accepting this proposal, and if you're gonna reject it, tell us specifically what aspect you're rejecting it for, because otherwise we're gonna be kept in a quagmire of indecision.
Right, so I'm gonna make the motion to adopt the recruiting process proposal, adding background check to the candidate screening, and follow the recommendation of Danielle using option 1.
It's the recommendation of Alex. He's the chair of the committee.
Oh, a recommendation of Alex and the chair to do in option 1. Do I have a second?
Alex, one second.
I'd like to know who else would like to second. I think my second is pretty clear, right? I second.
Okay, floor.
I have no discussion, so, I'm sorry. So again, I think this is great. I understand you just sort of changed it where you're doing process first and then the criteria. I would just like to highlight that the school is about to undergo publicity and scrutiny, and that if we are going to accept this process, that at the next board meeting, the criteria for the board member is brought up, and that this process is not immediately used to go out and start recruiting, because
We can't, because the process says we have to come up with a
I
criteria.
understand, but it's just, if we get 10 applicants and they start going into it, then we just want to make sure that we communicate to those candidates and say that we're still finalizing the process, we're developing the criteria, and communication is key. The next part is, I'm sorry, I may have misspoke when I said background checks. What I also mean is conflicts of interest. We want to make sure it's clear the conflicts of interest, that there are none that exist. When I took this position, I had no idea it was public. I was going to become a public official, and if I'd known that, I would have seriously reconsidered. But anyway, those are my comments.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I don't support, sorry.
Yeah,
go ahead, Pete.
Go ahead.
I guess before we decide on background checks, we should just define what you mean by background check. Specifically, what are you checking for? The fact if somebody was on some other committee or political opinions that you may disagree with, it's hardly something that necessarily disqualifies a person automatically. So I think, or whatever it might be, but I think you need to define exactly what you do with the results of the background check, not simply say you're having one, because that sounds like a dangerous proposition.
I agree. Let me be clear. Conflicts of interest. No open conflicts of interest with our school to start on the board.
No self-stealing, and I think we could be guided, in common to we could be guided by a DOJ lookup we do for teachers and everybody who's in the classroom.
No, it's the
That's
thing.
not gonna give you.
It's the public
No,
policy
no,
reform.
you're saying in addition, right?
Yeah.
Aren't you saying in
Two
addition?
things, I mean, it's a guideline, it's a starting point.
Yeah, it's not political opinion, it's just conflicts of interest.
Michael, do you want to?
Yeah.
Pete, does that answer your question? Right. So I think Pete makes a good point. I think we're all in agreement that they have no conflicts of interest to join the board, and to elaborate what that means and make a recommendation.
Yeah. So, I won't be voting for this for the reason that I don't support option 1. And then the second thing is I'm also voting no because I believe the person who does the screening should be the executive director. So if this said, assistant principal until the seating of the executive director, then I could support that. But I also, my other issue is, I do not like the option one.
Okay, then, if I were to phrase friendly amendment to do either option 1 or option 2, or do we have to say option 2?
That's a process, you can't have both.
Yeah.
Then I'll amend mine to, my motion to do option 2.
So the language that you described for the executive director, we just said because there was no executive director, we went with the alternate.
No, I understand.
So we can change that. Would you have a
It says
problem?
we're
with that?
another neutral party, so that was the
Well-
whole idea, that it would be somebody neutral, not on the board.
Yeah, and so I would phrase it the other way. In the absence of an executive director, Scott has been designated, but once an executive director is hired, then.
Are the committee members okay
takes
with that?
out.
Yeah, so we can change that, that's very easy. And then the option 2, does anybody on the committee, that's why we presented 2 options, so we don't have a problem with option 2, that's why we presented.
I don't like either.
Yeah,
I don't like either.
Alright, so let's go ahead and vote, we got to go on.
So,
Michael?
Are you, I'm sorry.
Like I amended this to according to reflect what you have just said, the 2, and then what the airlines changes have made.
So option 2.
Option
and,
2.
And executive director, but in the absence of one, then Scott.
Yes. Yep.
I'm gonna.
Yes.
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 Pete?
Yes.
Okay, so 5-2, measure is passed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
And
Fine.
let's move on to item 6, Biggie, you and Michael, can I answer?
Yeah, so basically what is at issue is that in the report out from the December 10th minutes from the closed session, the board asked the consultant, Mr. Escalante, to provide recommendations for hiring of a consultant to work on the middle school at some additional cost. We erred in the fact that we never voted in open session to do that, to add to the contract, and so the item tonight is to actually move to amend the contract with Mr. Escalante from December 10th, 2018, to have him provide additional consultant recommendations at the cost of is it $4,000? $4,000. So under the Brown Act, we should have, and this was my mistake if you want to put somebody on it, but we cannot vote on items that fund things in closed session, so we should have taken an action at a subsequent meeting to approve that. And this is what we need to do in order to make us be in compliance with both the Brown Act and our fiscal policies that we're required to do for LAUSD.
Archie?
So I move that.
Open for discussion. Frank?
The genesis of this was that an invoice was presented to me for approval. There was no invoice contract resolution, so I rejected that because of the breakup. There was an invoice and contract, but no resolution. And the contract was signed, so there is a contract out there for an amount of $4,000. I checked with legal, and they said before this was brought up to my attention through Yazir, who said he disagrees with the amount, and I want to bring this up with Lucy, which I did in Finance Committee meeting. It was elaborated to Lucy that that there's no contract and no invoice, and as such, I couldn't approve it, and I rejected it officially in the invoice when submitted to me.
Can we come back to that?
So, just for everyone here, the context of this, we worked with Mr. Escalante, we engaged him for recruitment services. It was very clear what we would get in those recruitment services for the ED position, and I personally think that he did a great job. But as he was moving through the process, the board, I presented in a site expansion meeting that the board, or the site expansion committee would recommend a consultant to facilitate the middle school opening of the middle school program. During that meeting, it was decided that Mr. Escalante would be the natural person who could possibly find us the right person. I did not disagree with it. We all understood that was at an additional cost. What I contest is the fact that the cost is $4,000, and I believe the person who became the middle school consultant was actually someone who applied for the ED position, which I believe means, I don't know how much work Mr. Escalante did, but I work in a professional environment, and I would never pay $4,000 to someone to just backfill another position he was already hiring for. My recommendation to the Finance Committee was to review what work was done. If it requires merit, that we pay Mr. Escalante his $4,000. But I do recall we interviewed no middle school consultants. We did not get profiles for anyone. Chris was only one person that came, and we engaged him. If I had known that was going to cost us $4,000, I would have said no. Anyway, so I raised it. Thank you, Lucia, for bringing it to the meeting. Thank you, Frank, for hearing my concerns, but that's the background.
Okay, and my recollection is that at the closed session we approved it and we discussed the dollar amount, but like Michael said, we just didn't carry it over to open session. Dr. Escalante's been waiting now, 3 or 4 months now to get paid, and hopefully we can get it cleared up. Marty? Mike? Pete, any input?
Nothing to add, thanks.
So my comments are, I don't recall this being discussed in closed session of $4,000. I don't recall this being agendized in a closed session discussion, that we're going to have to retain Mr. Escalante. That's what they took away from their board meeting, that's their interpretation, but he gave a very much lower bid than the other person that was bidding for this project. For just the consulting work, and to give a lower offer and then come back later and say, I'm going to charge $4,000 for getting you an interim. So whatever this scope of service is, I just would not have approved $4,000 for that type of. So I wouldn't have approved it then. So I can't see how I can approve it now.
Well, we asked for additional services. It wasn't like, Go ahead.
I'm not passing judgment on this. I'm passing judgment on the amount. I think that the combination out of these two, $12,500 and $4,000, is in line. Is probably 10% of an estimated pay, or if we pay the payroll in 10 months increments, it's about there where it needs to be. I think that's what professional recruiting firms charge. I think the amount is approvable. Not sure about the process, but for me, it's just the actual amount. I think the combined between the 12 and the 4 is okay, just for the record.
Look, I think $4,000, I mean, we're nickeling and diming people for Birthday Cafe. I think we definitely agreed to perform for him to give us a service. I just don't know what that service really was, other than a person who applied to another position. So I think, that being said, it's too much money, and we should just go back to him and say, renegotiate, give us something that's more fair.
Question. Is there a contract or is there not a contract?
It's my understanding that there's a signed contract.
Okay, well then you gotta pay.
Who signed it?
There was never an objection to the amount. No. It wasn't until we submitted it that there was an objection, and this is 3 months later. If there would have been an objection for Chris Jones to be paid.
In the minutes of the meeting that was it held, does it reflect that there was an agreement to pay him $4,000?
No.
What's the date of the contract?
It's December.
Yeah, when was the contract signed?
I don't know that.
So if we do that, and we could look back at the minutes of the meeting, the board meeting that happened, we can see
Contract was
whether.
signed in March.
The extension.
The extension.
Right.
So I'm simply reporting that what I wrote down as the report out, Alex, is that, that Mr. Escalante was going to interview candidates to assist GIS with another set of hands as a consultant for the launch of the GICS middle school, and to assist the LT using Mr. Escalante for consultant recommendations at additional cost. And to hold a special board meeting to consider hiring the consultant, the week of January 7th to the 19th. So I'm simply saying that's all that I recall happened as the report out. And that's what we just adopted, by the way, as our minutes for December 10th.
And
So,
I reported that, in February to the finance committee, to Frank and Biggie, saying, this is so I don't know where, why the contract would have been signed in March, and it went to finance committee, I believe, in February.
Yeah, we said, I asked Lucy to get in touch with you to discuss the matter.
Right, so I guess my point is, why would you sign the contract if you knew it was under dispute?
I didn't know it was under dispute by the time I signed it.
I heard you.
Paid in? You said about 600.
Yeah, so, Pete, anything you wanna add?
No, thanks.
Okay. So, anybody wanna make a motion?
Can I?
no, we did make the motion. So I moved it.
Sorry,
and-
somebody-
No, no,
Hold on.
No.
No public comments this time.
There's a question.
So, anybody second?
No, no, no.
I have
we're-
a question from
You
our.
gotta go.
Okay, right.
So I just need to know whether what we're doing is legal or not. I just don't know
Yeah,
whether what we're doing
we
is
signed the
legal.
contract.
We signed the contract.
We signed the
No,
contract.
to retroactively ratify that an agreement was made. Is that, from what you've heard, is it legal?
But it's depending on the services rendered, I'm sure that's the contract, we'd have to look at the contract,
Yeah,
so.
whether it's a written contract or an oral contract, doesn't
Let's do
matter.
another round, I'm just
No,
reading my
let's
check.
Okay, no, I just wanna ask one final question, guys, I mean, I'm ready to go.
Is it legal?
Are there any more open-ended agreements reached with Mr. Escalante that we're gonna find out about in the future? When will Mr. Escalante's contract come to an end? Sorry?
It's payment.
No, I mean, I don't know, are there any other verbal agreements or written agreements with Mr. Escalante? And what was being recommended tonight is legal?
Ratification?
May I say, because I think it's my turn?
Go ahead.
I'm sure if you look at the contract, there are terms in it. If we challenge the terms, okay, we don't have to pay the invoice, or we can negotiate a lower term. My recommendation would be to negotiate with him for a lower fee as per the terms of the contract. I haven't read it, but I can guarantee that's what's in it. I'm telling you, I'm not paying $4,000 for,
So you're gonna waste $4,000 worth of time.
And
instead.
we're
I
gonna
know.
raise 4,000 in legal fees.
Yeah.
No, what legal fees? I'll tell you, give it to me right now. I'll tell you what it says on it. So, anyway, you guys don't have to agree with me. I just think that's, we shouldn't just rubber stamp stuff and sign stuff when,
Well, mistakes happen and we.
I understand, but that's why we're gonna correct it. And we caught it, which is great, and we're gonna save the school $4,000. Or $3,750, because my recommendation was to pay him $250.
It's not your decision.
I know it was a recommendation, not a decision. So, there you go.
So you have a,
There's a motion, yeah, and the only thing I will add in my comments is that we also asked him for originally another consultant earlier on in the process, and he brought us a name, and he did not charge us for that person that he brought to us.
Yeah, but the candidate that he put, and it's so difficult to talk about because the person is in the room.
So don't
No,
talk about it then.
No, we're not, no,
The
it's not.
candidate he recommended was a candidate for the actual full search.
I
So I
understand.
take it from this pile, and I put it in this group,
Right.
and I say, I wanna charge you
It doesn't mean you didn't
4,000
look
for
through
it.
the file.
Right, what I'm saying, I'm not disputing what you're saying, I'm simply saying that prior to us taking this action in closed session, we also asked him for other names for consultants, which he provided to us, and he did not charge us for that. So, from my perspective, he gave us services that he did not charge us for prior to this December 10th, action. And then subsequently, he committed to do this at our request, and we signed a contract, and we can decide whether or not we want to pay.
Just one. Who should sign contracts with vendors? board members?
The board president is the.
In the absence of an executive.
The board
director?
president should sign contracts with vendors?
In the absence.
In the absence of
In
the
the absence of an
executive.
executive director?
Yeah.
Is that the policy?
Look, we can, I mean, we can discuss this all night as we have everything else. I can tell you right now that he's not happy that he hasn't got paid, okay? So, this doesn't strike me as an individual who's just gonna sit back and not get paid $4,000. So we're gonna hire Merrick here to defend us and pay Merrick the $4,000?
No, we just look at the
Yes.
term and we say, look, this is too much for a position that you already
Yes.
filled, so,
Yeah.
and then talk to him. I say just
Right,
go
but
back to him and
the problem
renegotiate.
is that, like I said,
Everything is based
You're-
on the EDA, you have to go
Anyway.
to closed
the
session.
problem is that he did work for us for free. And so we're not going in and asking him truthfully to just evaluate this. It's more complicated because he did work for us prior to that. And so that's why I'm suggesting, and that's why I made this motion, to just,
Just get it behind us.
Get it behind
I'm
us.
sorry to keep this,
Oh, that's
please,
fine.
I'm really sorry. What did he do for us for free? So now we're bartering.
No, let's not even talk about it. Let's
It's just, I'm
it's-
saying to you that my recollection
Okay.
is that we asked him for another consultant prior to this, for another responsibility, and he provided us, he went out and searched and provided us with that person.
Okay.
That was not part of the other job that he was doing.
You know what? If you're gonna go on a limb for it, I'll support.
Call it.
Take a vote.
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
And the motion is what?
The motion
Pay
is
him the $4,000.
to pay him the $4,000 to approve the amendment of the contract, for December 10th, 2018, and to pay Mr. Escalante $4,000 based upon our commitment to him from that day.
Yes.
I vote yes.
I don't like that motion because it's not accurate. We're paying for him for services rendered in addition to the ED service, not for this one. But
I will write it down.
thank you, Michael. Then you have my vote.
Alex?
No.
I go with the legal ratification with the okay, and I say yes.
Pete?
Motion is to pay the $4,000?
Yes.
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 Alright,
Okay. All right. 6-1 vote. Pay the man. Diggy, Casey, you guys, you're up.
I thought you.
Yeah, I
We
thought
have
we were closed
about
session.
11 minutes until this meeting is over. So maybe we should prioritize the agenda.
Yeah, let's, no, I just, you guys keep your head in here yet, so I figured So let's, can we move it around and go to closed session now? Can we make, or can we table some of these items?
No, don't we need to do those sessions, but pushing back
and just finish this stuff up.
Could we, yes, can we move forward on item C and D, sorry. Yes, B4 and C.
I have an alternate proposal, is I say we just keep going at full speed and we do closed session in a special meeting.
You just make an attorney's decision.
That's the life of an
Yeah,
attorney.
I say the other way around, we move everything else to a special meeting.
We're not gonna get to special
Closed
meeting,
session,
we're
yeah.
not gonna get to closed session
We're not gonna get
in
closed
10
session.
minutes. I mean, it's a brain,
Well,
it's a no-brainer.
Let's see if we can, get the janitor to extend to 10:30.
Well, then why don't we just go enrollment update classroom, let's go 5 minutes.
Okay, I'm still suggesting that we do item B4 and C first.
Okay, can you
Just
quickly?
approval.
B4 was recommended by the finance committee. It's to buy the storage container or a storage container compared to the one that we're leasing since 10 years. The lease is about $113 per month for the 10 years that we paid. A container to buy would be around $4,000. In the first few years, obviously we could pay more, but it would
I motion.
be a better solution.
I motion.
I second it.
Yay, yes.
Discussion, anybody?
No.
Michael?
Yes.
Margaret?
Yes.
It's a yes for me?
I do have a question.
I'm sorry. About the container?
In the event that we're thrown off the school, where would the container go?
That's a good question.
Back to-
Sorry? It's ours,
Sorry?
it comes with us.
Go with us.
So it would land on Julian's garage. I'm okay.
Okay.
Alright, so that's a yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, Pete?
Yes.
Thank you. Alright, that's 7-0. Approval of update to GIC website.
Finance committee has recommended.
GIC, the website?
Yeah, we presented at a previous board meeting that we had an offer from, a competitor for the website that would actually be cheaper than what we're currently paying for our website services, but they offer, more support for us.
Excellent.
And they offer a redesign, so included.
Move to approve, move to approve.
Motion second?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait
Vote?
a second, who on it? Oh,
I
Margaret.
think you
and
can
second
call all in
was-
favor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can I ask a quick question?
No.
Would I go to for the signatures for both of those items because we can't sign those contracts?
Go with president.
Until we get, well, let's see how the closed session goes tonight. Response word. Oh, yes.
Okay.
So sir, there are 4 items. We're not gonna cover these? An update on the parent representative? Let's talk
Okay,
about
no,
that.
we'll come back to it.
I know, so this is an opportunity to make a full, okay. Alright, I'll be super quick, I promise, so try to keep up with me. Alright, so in case you don't know me, my name is Nazmi Akbab. I teach 2nd grade here, but since March I've also been chair of marketing and outreach. If you can just get one and pass it along. So a lot has been done. I want you to know that we started from 0, so when I got there we had nothing. So our 4 main goals were, or still are, to increase enrollment, increase diversity now that we're opening up a middle school, to advertise for middle school, and overall raise our brand awareness. And so I just want to quickly go over the things that we have been doing. So under strategy, you see the things that are already going. I created a social media platform for us. We have Instagram. If you're not following us, please do so. Yes, I know. I see that. Yes, thank you. So our platform is growing. We're using that to give the world an insight into what's happening inside our classrooms and also, on campus. But also we're pushing out middle school related information on there so that we're opening middle school. We tried out paid advertising. I paid that out of my own pocket. It was only $40, so I could afford it with my teacher's salary. And the good thing about paid advertisement is that it gives you statistics because we have a business account, so it shows exactly who's visiting, so what the population is. And recently, I just started paid advertisement with our middle school post, and it showed that out of the 2,000 people that the ad reached in 3 days, 4 people actually clicked on the button website. So 4 people went on our website, and 1 person actually clicked on get directions. So that's a little success. I know, but we're growing. So thank you. Yeah, right. So we're also on Twitter. We're on YouTube now. YouTube, we're live streaming right now, so you can spread the word in our community that they can watch any of our public meetings on our YouTube account. Also, YouTube will be used for promotional videos, and I'll get to that in a little bit. So what we've done so far, other than that, is to encourage parents and our greater community to go and put positive reviews on high web traffic websites such as Great Schools. And we have done one campaign where we ask parents after back to school night to go on greatschools.org and leave a positive review, and since then we have 60 more positive reviews. Other than that, we just published an ad and an advertorial on Argonauts. So last week it came out. If you live in the neighborhood, you probably got it. Look for us. I wish I had a copy right now, but
Can you blast that out?
yeah.
That's in the Argonaut.
Yeah, you know what? That's a good idea. We should do that. But here, this is how the ad looks. Thank you, Biggie. And then there is a quarter-page advertorial for that too. Yeah, it turned out really cute. This was about
knows about 700.
Yes.
Did you get any calls after this ad was run for asking people to enroll?
This was just last
That
week.
was just last
Yeah.
Thursday. We've had calls these past few days, but I wouldn't be able to tell you if it's because of the ad.
Yeah, speaking of that though, what I was gonna recommend for admin is that for when we have like parents come in and sign up, we should always ask them, how did you hear about us? So I would love to hear, I found you on Instagram, obviously. So we have published one in the Argonaut so far, and then there's gonna be another one in the summer guide, if you're subscribed to that or if you're getting that, and then here on after, for the next 2 months, we're gonna have a quarter page in the Argonaut published. Our marketing materials are currently in process. So far we have had English and Spanish flyers that lovely parents have already passed out in their own neighborhoods. So in coffee shops, libraries, gyms, you will hopefully find those. We're working on banners right now. A team of professional designers is working on making them look really nice for us. One thing that we're working on is yard signs, so hopefully by the end of the school year, you guys will all go home with a beautiful yard sign so you can put it up so that everybody that passes by your house can see that you're a proud parent or proud community member of our school. Bumper stickers, etc. Are coming too. Alright, so the biggest item here that I wanted to discuss with you guys is the promotional video. I have heard from several board members already and other people from our community that's always been something that they wanted to do, so we're doing that right now. However, I'm going to need your approval on that because it is the largest item on our budget. Dr. Jones found this amazing videographer. His name is Gabe Senna, and he has worked with schools before, and he provided us with sample videos that he has created for other schools too. And if we want to be competitive with other schools, I think that's definitely something that we need to have, and on our website too. So here I'm going to pass out an outline of the services that he provides. It costs $7,900. He wants half of it now and half of it when he's done with it. It is part of our budget. You guys told me that we have 11,000. So yeah, so you guys said we have $11,000 and let's use it. And I think this is a great investment because this guy knows definitely what he's doing. The reason why we were gonna pay half of it now is because I want him to come in for the International Flair. That's like our biggest event at school, and we won't have a chance to record at the International Flair until a year from now. So yeah, the idea was that he comes in now, and then the actual day of the shoot will be when the new school year starts. Other than that, on this agenda is this week, and then also beginning of June, Biggie and myself, we're gonna visit several neighborhood association meetings. The one this week on Wednesday is the Westchester Flyer Neighborhood Council meeting, and then the one in June is the Delray Neighborhood Council meeting.
Motion to approve the video.
Second.
Okay?
Yeah. No discussion, ready to vote.
No, okay. Go ahead and start your vote.
Aye.
Alex? Right?
Yes.
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 Pete? Pete?
Yes.
All right, 7-0. Good job. Thank you very much. All right, at this time we're going to try to go to closed session.
So then there's another item. Update on parent board representative to the board of
We
trustees.
don't. We're gonna table that for the next meeting, and we're gonna go to closed session. Thank you, everybody. If you'd like to stick around.
Let's go into the other room again.
Yeah.
It's probably easier because we still have to come back and reconvene.
Is that the right word?
You can stay here if we're going to the meeting room.
How long do you guys have?
8 hours and 15 minutes.
I have enough. You're ready, please. We have enough.
We have nothing left.
Nothing but.
No time. At 10 o'clock.
Oh, really? They're locking it? We're gonna turn off the lights?
What happens then? Well, they need to set the alarms and everything.
I get up at 6.
We're walking.
Closed session, yes.
Yeah, you take it, you give it back to me.
He's saying it doesn't work,
I'm curious as to what happened there, so whenever they'll give it back to me.
Is the recording on?
It announced me, I believe so.
Are we still recording?
Yeah.
No, you just,
Where 51, where the library is.
So they heard that. So, and, I can share with you. Can you find it having some stall, is it? Is that like the refrigerator that never gets cleaned? Oh, geez. I did.